Initializing Ethereum protocol. Establishing link to Cloud Citadel. Welcome, Alita Army. You stand at the threshold of quantum consciousness.
Okay, Alita Army, welcome to the Alita live stream of January the 9th, 2026. Alita Beyond Earth, Survival in the 26th Century, where we discuss all things to do with the movie Alita Battle Angel, the source manga Gundam, and the greatly desired sequel. I am your host, Creek Indian from Denver, Colorado, and I am the only one here right now, which is okay. If anybody wants to come on, there's the link. I just put that in the chat. If you want to come in and join the stream, please do so. I'll bring you right in, and I don't bite very hard anyway, so you'll have fun with us, I guess. And I did invite several guests there. I guess they're running late or something. But even if they're not, I can still do this all by myself because you guys know that I can talk about Alita as long as you want me to talk about Alita. Just want to remind everyone that we got the LA Fires fundraiser going on. We've raised $1,600, which, may not sound like a lot, but, every little bit helps. There you see the link below the image on the screen. That link is also down in the description. Click on that, takes you to the website, and you click on Donate Now. Now, you can specify one of three ways of how you want to be identified. Now, like with me and Angelus, we basically put our names in there, and we don't really care. I know that Vladi actually he donated some money here a few months ago, and he used his internet handle for that. He put Vladi99, or you can do like say Lee Lemon did. He specified anonymous. So did Alita Rave. He specified anonymous. That way, if you're a little worried about your name or any of your personal information getting it out in the internet, then you can kind of hide that through that anonymous stipulation. We also have the Alita sequel petition going on, and I think we've added probably 3 or 4 from last week. I'm not real sure. But there's the link you see below the image on your screen there. That link is also down in the description. You click on that, and it takes you to the website. You do have to enter your name and email address, but you can specify that to be anonymous, because once you sign the petition, you'll see a list of others that have signed it, and those that have specified anonymous will be identified as such. It'll just list anonymous in that particular list for the signatures. If you want, you can also promote the site, the petition, by donating money, but you don't have to do that if you're if you're a Alita Army member and you sign the petition, you've done your part already. But every little bit helps here as well. I know I put a little bit of money in there myself. I think about 4 months ago, I think I put $200 in there or something like that, and it added 300 or 400 signatures. I think I'm not sure exactly how many, but anyway, this is our way of reminding Disney that we want that sequel. We're going to keep this out there as long as it takes. We also have Rose's Queen Studios bust of Alita. It's still in the box, and it's never been opened. I promised Starvellian that I wouldn't open it. He sent it to me about 3 years ago, I think, and I've had it ever since. When I saw Rosa at the Pasadena Playhouse, she said she wanted it. I told her that we had it for her, and this was an expression of our admiration, appreciation, and affection for her, as our queen. And she seemed quite delighted to be the queen of the Alita Army. And she did tell me the first time I went to see her at the Pasadena Playhouse, I told her about this, and she was really I guess, you know, flattered by it, I guess would be the best word I could put on it. And it said something like, you know, you're queen of the elite army, and we got this, you know, bust we want to give you. And, you know, and she said, well, if I'm queen of the elite army or something to this effect, I would wear that crown with pride or something like that. And then the second time I went to see her at the Pasadena Playhouse, she did tell me that she, or she told me that she wanted it. So, you know, we're going to get it to her once, you know, once that sequel has been greenlit, probably. And when I go to London, hopefully she's not out there right now, but when I go to London to see her next weekend, I'm going to remind her about the bust. She knows about it already. She's probably just waiting for the right time to actually, you know, tell us, hey, you know, it's, you know, let's get the bus going. And we'll send this to her any way she wants. You know, if she wants me to ship it to her, I'll do that. If she says, Creek, why don't you put that thing in your car and drive it down here to Los Angeles, I'll do that too. It's only 1,100 miles I could drive. That's standing on my head. So that's, which would be an ugly sight, I guess. But, you know, we'll get this to her anyway she wants it. And this is, for us, is not a gift. This is an expression of our admiration and appreciation and affection for Rosa, you know, being our queen. And this for us is an award, actually. We do have the Alita Gaming Network going on. And, you know, I did put the link for this stream, I guess, in the live streams channel that you see there up the upper left corner. You know, and I know Maxie actually puts you know, he puts the link for Radio Chaos in there as well. Chaos Nova also puts his links in there for live streams that he does when he does them. He doesn't do as many as we do, but he still does live streams from time to time. So if you do streaming, anybody out there, and you join the network, which all you'd have to do is click on that link you see there. Well, actually, that link is down in the description. You'd click on it down there. And it takes you to Discord. If you don't have a Discord username already, Discord will prompt you for that. If you get the basic service, it's absolutely free. It doesn't cost anything. And then, of course, if you want to join the network, that's absolutely free as well. We don't charge for this. And we have somewhere around 50, I guess, members. And they're really enjoying this. And I think you will, too, if you click on it. But you got to have a Discord username for this. And it's free if you get the basic service. If you do fanfics, then, of course, you can upload your fanfic to the fan fiction channel, or you can actually upload a link. Like if your fanfic is on Archive of Our Own or something like that, then you can just put the link to your fanfic in the fan fiction channel. I know that Lee Lemon and Max Tack Dry, they have like novel level fanfics in there. Panini Freak has got a fanfic in there. Soda's channel does not exist, has a lot of fanfics in there, several. I don't even know how many. You know, at least a half a dozen, but it could be more than that. And even I've got a fanfic in there. So, you know, if you want to see new stories of Alita, even if it's not canon, as they would say, it's still pretty good. You get to, you know, you can read the stories. And, you know, I know in my case, I have, you know, images going along with that in my fanfic. If you do artwork or you do videos, you can post those in the user creations channel. And you can either post that in, or you can actually put a link in there. You know, I know that I've put links in the user creations channel myself from time to time. If you do content that's not Alita related, or it's maybe very loosely Alita related, then you can put that in the off-topic channel. We have 3 voice channels, and those channels are not streams. So if you want to just talk to other people on the Alita Gaming Network, then you would just get into one of those voice channels. It's very much like GoToMeeting or Microsoft Teams or Zoom. You go into those, and everyone that's on that channel and only those that are on the channel that you would invite or maybe would jump on after they see the channel's active, you know, in the gaming network, and you talk to them. And nobody else on the internet sees this. It's just you and whoever's on the channel. You can share your screen. You can play games on it. I know Vladi and Spendrick were actually playing RoboCop for a while in the gaming channel. And they, you know, were having fun with that. We also have, watch parties that we've done. And we did a watch party here, I guess, last Monday or Monday before last. I'm not sure. But we watched Chips because the reason why we watched Chips, of course, is because Rose is in it. And we enjoyed that quite a bit. It's a really fun movie. But on September the 9th, you know, I actually, you know, did a watch party myself there. We watched Alita Battle Angel. We've watched Alita Battle Angel, 2 or 3 times, you know, in the watch party channel itself. We also have watched other movies on there, that particularly that Rose has been in. We watched Chariot. We watched that some time ago. I can't recall how long ago it was, but it's been quite a while. We watched her Star Trek short, you know, The Trouble with Edward. We've watched that 3 or 4 times. And we watched her a couple of times. We watched her the short that she put together, Good Crazy, which is kind of a neat little story on that one too. That you know, that's our queen to the hilt, I think. But we've also watched other movies. We watched, for instance, we watched, I guess, Ghost in the Shell, both the live action movie with Scarlett Johansson and one of the anime episodes. And we did watch Rollerball at one time too, because it was very much like Motorball. So we wanted to kind of watch that there. But if you're a member, you can actually do your own watch parties here as well. You don't need my permission to do it. You just jump in there and you invite some other folks. And in that regard, it's very much like, you know, the voice channels. And people will come on and you can, you know, watch, you know, whatever you have, you know, that you can watch like on your computer or something like that. And, you know, just have a good time with that. You can actually kind of promote it within the network in that watch party text channel, you know, by just putting, you know, some notification, or you can even upload like a thumbnail or something if you want, you know, to say, hey, we're going to have a watch party. Does anybody want to join? Something like this. So that's where we are with this good stuff. Yes, we do, Spendrick. We definitely need more watch parties for sure. Okay, well, let's get into the main topic, and that would be Alita Beyond Earth, Survival in the 26th Century. Now, we've done something similar to this in the past as it pertains to just strictly Iron City, you know, about how Alita, and we've even done a couple other streams to where, you know, Alita would be like teleported back to the 21st century, you know, and then, you know, how would she do? And we've done a stream where if one of us were teleported up to the 26th century, how well would we survive or something like that? And you know, how Alita actually, you know, lives in Iron City. We've done this, but we're going to expand that here. We're going to include the Interplanetary Society. And if anybody that's read the manga knows that, you know, certainly that Earth is part of this, but so is Mars, as you know, so is Venus, so is Jupiter. And there are other colonies, like I recall another colony on Pluto that I think Aga Embody went to when he was kind of a younger man, you know, early in this space exploration. So, you know, that this civilization in the 26th century in the Alitaverse has expanded to other planets. Now, in the case of Venus and Jupiter, of course, they don't live on the surface because in both of those, on both those planets, that would be that'd be a technological challenge that even 540 years in the future would be pretty tough to conquer, even at that point. So those particular, you know, civilizations are very similar to like what we see with Zalem, how it is connected to Jeru. And Jeru is kind of like a geosynchronous orbit above the Earth. And we've done a couple of streams on that. So, you know, Venus and Jupiter have those kind of civilizations. They're actually, you know, kind of in orbit around those planets, you know, on huge platforms. We're going to talk about the different technologies that are involved in each of these planets. And we're actually going to see, you know, some of the, you know, kinds of individuals that would be living on these individual planets. You know, for instance, it wouldn't be in the 26th century, as we know from the movie, not everyone is just 100% human. You know, I mean, there are total replacement cyborgs where maybe they only have a brain, a human brain, and they may have their spine still. It depends on, on what percentage of replacement they are. They do have other cyborgs that are not total replacement cyborgs, but they may have like cybernetic arms or something like this, or legs. And there may be, I guess you would call them partial replacement cyborgs, perhaps. But, you know, the different technologies, cyborg technologies, you know, they kind of are a little, you know, there's a little difference between each one and the planet, each of the planets, particularly between Mars and Earth. And we're certainly going to see some images, you know, what these individuals might look like, you know, and maybe a little bit of a description of them. And then we got some questions for you guys to see what you think of it, and you know, how this would play out in terms of the evolution of the human race, or you know, how it changes over time in terms of being more of a technological being than, say, maybe a biological being, and so forth. I think you meant queen there, but yeah, our queen can make it anywhere. That's absolutely right. You know, I guess I would say, though, Spendrick, that Alita is our girl and Rose is our queen. So I think that's the way it works, you know. Well, if you've got non-organic parts, like if you've got an artificial knee, you are partially a cyborg, I guess. You know, we kid Maxie sometimes because we call him the 1% cyborg. He has kind of a blood monitor he has, you know, plugged into him, you know, where he has to kind of keep tabs on his insulin levels, I guess, or sugar levels. And we call him a 1% cyborg, whereas Alita would be like 98% cyborg. So, you know, there'd be the different varying degrees of cyborg, I guess, in the Alita verse. And we saw an example of that in one of the opening scenes, didn't we? We saw the guy that, I guess, his arm was not functioning well, and Ito was kind of working on it. And basically, you know, this is a scene where he gives him a bag of oranges, you know, for that. So he wasn't a 100% cyborg. He wasn't a total replacement cyborg. He was, I guess you would say, a partial cyborg. You know, because his arm was the only thing that was cybernetic. Excuse me. And this is basically what the civilization looks like, you know, in the Alita verse. There are particularly the primary civilizations are on these 4 planets. Certainly Earth, you know, is certainly the cradle of humanity for sure. And that's where, you know, I guess space travel to other planets initiated that eventually colonized these other planets. But you can see that Venus there is, you know, pretty, in terms of size, it's pretty close to the size of Earth. And sometimes it's been called Earth's twin, although it's not Earth's twin, because the atmospheric pressure on Venus is like 90 times that of the surface of the Earth. And the atmosphere itself is primarily, you know, carbon dioxide, hydrogen sulfide, and sulfuric acid. So it wouldn't be a very good very good place to try to live. And the temperatures on Venus is like 900 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's not going to be not going to be too good a place for you to visit, I think. You know, whereas Earth, of course, is you know, is basically, you know, a kind of a comfortable place, I guess, mostly for organic beings. And then there's Mars, and then of course a lot of that the manga Mars Chronicle is based on life on Mars. On Mars, now Mars is also not a very hospitable place either. Its atmospheric pressure is 0.6% of the Earth, so its actual atmosphere is actually closer to the moon than it is the Earth. So, you know, you can't breathe that atmosphere, you know, because it's just so thin that, and it doesn't have oxygen in it. So, you know, you'd be dead pretty fast, you know, if you had, say, if you had a, you know, space suit on or something like that, and you took your helmet off, you'd be dead within probably 13 seconds. You know, because it is more like a vacuum than it is an actual atmosphere, or closer to it. The temperature on Mars at the equator, particularly I guess in the summertime, you know, those sections of Mars where, you know, it's, you know, I guess tilted toward the sun, can reach as high as 75 degrees Fahrenheit, which would seem pretty, you know, comfortable. But once again, without that atmosphere, that's going to be pretty rough. But at night, you know, when it you know, or say during the winter time at night, it could go down to I'm guessing like 150 degrees below or more, 175 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit. So not a very hospitable place. Now the thing about Mars, though, the reason why it's colonized like this is that mainly the inhabitants are living under this vast dome, and it's you know, it's held up by these columns called solae in German, and these columns are kind of like living organisms, you know, basically, if you've read the manga, and it holds up this canopy over Mars, in which the air is pressurized in there, and it's got oxygen and that sort of thing. Now, in terms of Jupiter, once again, you can't live on the surface of Jupiter, because as bad as Venus is, Jupiter is much worse. Its atmospheric pressure near the core, no telling how much that is. It could be thousands of times, you know, that of Earth. Now, the civilizations on both Venus and Jupiter are both, you know, they kind of like have floating platforms, you know, that are orbiting those planets, because you cannot live on the surface on either of those planets. So you know, that what has happened is that when the Earth colonized, you know, these planets, that it, instead of attempting, hello, Chaos Nova. I think you're muted there, Chaos, somehow.
Hear this?
Yeah, there you go. Now we hear you.
Better. Where is everybody?
Well, looks like
I'm okay.
everybody is
just busy, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think Angela said
I might pause a little bit.
Well, that's all right. But I think
I'll be there.
Angela said I think he on X, he said he had to work or something like that. I'm not sure. So he works a lot of extra hours to get merch, I guess. So anyway, how's it going there north of Philadelphia? Well, I guess Chaos had to step away. Anyway, as I was saying about Venus and Jupiter, the civilizations there are living on these gigantic platforms that are orbiting the planets. So you can imagine that, you know, the technology required, the engineering challenges that have to be overcome to do that would be immense, you know, and that says something that about, you know, technology and engineering 540 years in the future, that's going to be that's way above anything we can do today. So
Right. Yeah. There was a back when I was in Arizona, actually a former astronaut got to speak. Franklin Chang Diaz. He's got some videos on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
I'll write his name, but he was talking about, if we can figure out a certain kind of propulsion using ionization of a particular type of gas atom, we might be able to get propulsion that goes faster than regular rockets.
Yeah. Yes, I did see something about that, a new propulsion system they were going to use. Because I think the way they're doing it now, they have to use, kind of the inertia of the Earth to kind of, help sling the spacecraft out, like, for instance, to Mars. And you have to do it at a certain point to where, that maybe that they're at opposition. Yeah, or something like, yeah.
They were suggesting launching off the moon, actually.
Yeah.
To get to Mars.
Yeah, because it'd be easier, I think. Or they could do it from the orbit of Earth even, but it takes like 7 months, I think, to get to Mars from Earth the way they do it today. But,
with our rockets, yeah. That's about how long it takes probes to make it to Mars with rockets.
Yeah, exactly. So, and but Earth and Mars have to be on the same side of the sun, together. It's called opposition. If Earth and Mars were on opposite sides of the sun, it would probably take 1.5 to 2 years to get to Mars, probably, So they have to kind of, where is Vladi? Well, Vladi's already he's in England, of course, Mendrick. So, so I invited him though. So, so anyway, this is the crux of the civilization in the Alitaverse. Certainly Earth.
Got it.
And if you remember that during the fall, in the movie, there were like 12 of these floating platforms, and then of course all of them came down with the exception of Zalem, and of course Zalem is up, tethered to Jeru above it. And the other 11, I guess, came, the military kind of destroyed them, I suppose. But it's it's a situation there where that engineering is pretty awesome as well, So, but anyway, you got the Earth, and then of course they colonized Mars and Venus and Jupiter. And the individuals living on Mars are primarily, now they're in the manga, they have humans on Mars for sure. But they also, this is where the prevalence of cyborgs are as well. A lot of the people that live on Mars are, there's, hello, Channel.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Hello.
Hello.
How are things in Poland there, Channel?
Cold.
Yeah. It's kind of like that here, too. It's like -3 degrees Celsius, I guess, this morning when I got up. So
it's -12 here.
Ooh, mercy. Yeah, that's pretty rough. That's probably like 10 degrees Fahrenheit, I think. And of course, AKA says hi to Chaos and Channel.
Hi.
So anyway, those are the 4 planets, I guess, that where human civilization has expanded to in the 20th.
Are we counting Mercury?
Say what, Channel?
Are we counting Mercury, since the Alitaverse there used to be civilization on Mercury, but there no longer is? Are we counting Mercury?
It got turned into liquid mercury, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it got turned into the soup that created the anomaly.
Yeah,
that I'm pretty sure Nova wanted to fuck.
Yes. Well, not only that, Channel, you remember Aga-Mbadi, he went to Pluto at one point, if you remember.
Yeah, he went to Pluto before it turned into nanobot soup.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, yeah, out of a little bit out of touch, a little bit out of time with how the manga came up, we no longer consider Pluto to be a planet.
Yeah.
After
well,
we
it's a
published that issue
planetoid.
of Last Story.
Yeah,
it's just because there are so many objects around the size of it out there in the Kuiper Belt that they don't call it a planet anymore.
And I think there's also colonies on asteroids too, aren't there? I mean, where they're
that's the Kuiper Belt. It's asteroids. They're they're more along the lines of icy, but there are objects out there that are close to Pluto's size. So when there's so many objects that are close to what Pluto's size is, they just didn't figure to call it a planet anymore.
Yeah.
Technically, I don't remember if it was Venus or with the other planet that was colonized in the Alita solar system. They didn't actually colonize the planets; they colonized the moons.
Yes. Yeah, that's
or
right.
Jupiter.
Yeah.
Because Jupiter's a gas giant. That's why.
Yeah, you can't live on the surface on Jupiter, nor can you do so on Venus either, although they have floating cities around Venus, I guess, kind of like Jeru is, I guess.
Or
like
Cloud City in
yeah.
Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, kind of like that. Or they had a Cloud City in Star Trek too, the original series. So, you know.
Well, there was Stardock Alpha around Earth, but not quite the same.
But these 4 planets right here. These are the heavy hitters in terms of the civilization, you know, of humans. You know, humans and the cyborgs. You know, and the others are small colonies, I guess. So, any thoughts, you guys? Did I leave out anything, you guys?
I missed most of it.
Oh, okay. Well,
I should go back and rewatch.
all right. Yeah, I noticed that you came in and said hi early on. You know, I came on.
I confused the hour.
Yeah. So let's see. Chaos has put a couple of videos in there. I'm going to put that in the public chat so you guys can go check them out. Let's see. What's this other one here? What is all of this? Okay. Okay, well, here's the 2 that I guess Chaos put in the private chat, so you can go check those out. And that's exactly right, Dark Star Shadow. The asteroid belt was being cannibalized by the major powers. Before the fall, I think Earth was a pretty major player, but I think Earth and Mars kind of pretty close to wipe themselves out. So, you know, that's
depending on if we're talking about the movie continuity or the manga continuity.
The surface is pretty bad. The surface is pretty bad in terms of what's down there, but they still use the rings or Jeru as a major place. It's like I don't know how to explain it. It's as if, you know, it's like reverse of Escape from New York, the movie with Kurt Russell.
Yeah,
the reverse of it, where they just use that outpost, but they ignore the surface and they don't let people leave Earth.
Yeah.
Something I'm curious about.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go on.
When Zalem fell, the counterbalance, it says that it pulled out the underwater city on the other side of the globe.
Yeah.
And my question is, was the underwater city an abandoned ruined city that just was very well preserved, or was it also an active city with people living in it?
I don't know.
It was, but it got wrecked because when you go into Last Order, there's the ring, and the ring around the Earth got imbalanced, so the
imbalance was pulled it out of the ocean.
Went up, and the one on the water went under the ocean.
The imbalance in Zalem was still somewhat functioning, and when the ring collapsed, the Zalem fell down. That's why it was possible to get from the scrapyard into Zalem, because no longer 2 kilometers in the air. It was sitting on the pile of garbage.
In the original, the tower was built up to it, but
the tower
Last Order
in the canon version,
right. But this is back when they were doing terraforming wars. Zalem went up higher, and the city went under. Other city on the other side of the Earth went underwater.
I assumed they built it. I had just assumed they built the city to be underwater, and they built Zalem to be in the air. Considering Zalem's defenses are, they're probably they're working for not getting attacked by the surface, but they're probably built partially for city in the air planning.
Right. Zalem's defenses depend on the speed of what happens when it hits the field. If you hit it really hard, really fast, it will either disintegrate you or you will get ripped apart like a bullet. But if you go at it really slower, like climbing up to it, that defense shield will not stop you because you're slower moving. Does that make sense?
I think
the high speed of the greater the speed you hit Zalm's defense field, the more it repels you away from it. It's similar to the shields, the energy shields in Dune by Frank Herbert.
Yeah.
I did not read Dune. I've seen a lot of references. I did not actually read it.
Oh,
Or
they
watch
did the movie.
series.
I watched the movie.
I did not watch that either.
But no, the old one with Kyle MacLachlan in 1984. But I'm reading the books now. And I made a whole thing about Zalm's defenses and how it works. So I could.
Yeah, I read that. I read those books a long time ago. They've been around forever. Those two books, the Dune rather, has been around for quite a while. Badman says that the Indian Ocean city is on the surface, not underwater. Do you remember that, Chaos? I seem to think that's what I remember as well. So.
Oh yeah, I think that's it.
But yeah, it was only one panel, so I might be misremembering it.
So it's floating, I guess. So anyway, these are the major places where humans are. The others, as Badman suggests, are just they're just outposts. They don't have really sprawling civilizations on them like these 4 planets do. Anyway. Abaddon is a directed energy weapon as opposed to a shield. Yeah, I think when they fired that, I guess when the Barjack fired that rail cannon, at the tube, trying to bring Zalem down, it was destroyed by that directed energy beam, I guess, from Zalem. I think is the way that worked, if I remember correctly. Anyway, is that right, Dark Star Shadow? I don't remember. So I think that's what happened, though. Anyway, that's it. That's those 4 guys. Yeah, it's a scalar weapon. That's exactly right. So in other words, as the more energy you throw at it, the more it's going to throw back at you, I think is the way that thing works. But anyway. Just to kind of go further with that is that, we know that Mars is where Alita was born, and certainly we know that her name on Mars was Yoko. And of
Yoko
course,
Sonan.
Yes. And then of course, Earth, their societies, consisted of, certainly Zalem, Iron City, and Scrapyard. Now, I don't think in the manga they don't refer to the city on the ground as Iron City. They just call it the Scrapyard, I think is what they do,
I think it was originally the elevator was built in Star City, and Iron City is probably built from the ruins of Star City.
Yeah.
Because we know Star City had a elevator built in it, and we only have 2 confirmed, and Star City is in America, I think. Definitely not in the Indian Ocean, so it couldn't have been the other one.
Kansas City in the manga, but it's Panama City in the movie.
In Kairula's flashback, it's Star City when she's talking with Arthur and the ring is being built.
Now, Channel's offering to do another art tutorial if anybody's interested. I would say, Channel, I think we're going to do that tomorrow, aren't we? Aren't you going to do a tutorial tomorrow on Radio Chaos?
I have to ready.
Because I thought I saw that in the show notes anyway.
I did not put it in the show notes. I don't have access to the show notes, and if I do, then I can't find it.
I know, but I think Maxie or Angelus put it in the show notes, I think. I'm pretty sure I saw it. Anyway. Yeah, let me get through the topic, and then we'll see. Maybe we can do another art tutorial, because that was a lot of fun last Saturday. So
I have 2 ready. One that is based on how the last one went, and one that is based on a suggestion from Discord.
Okay. Well, let's take a look at it after we get through with the topic here. Yeah, scalar weaponry is pseudoscience. Yeah, that's right. Dark Star Shadow. Yeah, it's fiction. That's what would expect.
The whole series is science fiction, though. I'm pretty sure transferring your soul via radio waves while having a heart attack is also pseudoscience at best.
Yeah.
And magic with sciencey words. Honestly, magic with sciencey words is just the honest way of saying pseudoscience.
But anyway, Earth, has Solomon Iron City. And of course, Venus and Jupiter, they have sprawling civilizations around them, and everything else are like outposts or colonies, I guess. And those are all mostly covered in Last Order and Mars Chronicles. So, and soon Panzer Kunst Chronicle too, I guess, pretty soon, hopefully. So anyway, different. I mentioned a while ago that technology is a little bit different on each of these planets. So one of the things that we consider here is how does the technology in terms of nanotech vary from let's say from Mars and Earth. We do know that berserker cells, I think, were developed on Mars, and then Nova developed the Imagino cells based on the berserker cells. I guess he did like an upgrade or something to
right.
To
one of the orbital. Oh, yeah, that's right. In the movie, it's supposedly from Mars, although it's not confirmed. In the manga, it was made in the orbital colonies on Venus. So.
Oh, okay.
Orbital Venus colonies, yeah.
I'm pretty sure
They're cities.
Mars is the one that originally a lot of cyber tech came from, and Venus, Jupiter. And Jupiter is where it got good. Venus is where they got all the biotech, the bioprinting, the genetic engineering, all the nanotech that's not technically nanobots.
Yeah. But you can see there, just from that discussion, that each of these planets got a little bit different technology in terms of nanotech, and then of course, I guess the brain chips, were those on Venus, or was that Earth?
Earth.
Yeah. Okay.
Jupiter also uses them, I think, but mostly Earth. Also, beautiful how Jupiter is the leader in cyborg technology currently. Venus has this amazing level of, they're gross about it, but it is impressive. This amazing level of genetic engineering and bioengineering of every type. And medicine. And Earth has literally freaking immortality because methylization exists. And meanwhile and meanwhile Mars is living in the 20th century.
So what about quantum computing? Oh, go ahead.
But with zombie ninjas. They're in the 20th century, but with zombie ninjas.
Okay. Well, we do know that Melchizedek is on. It's on Zalem. It might be on Jeru. I don't recall which.
It depends on the ending. It's in Zalem in the Tree of Life ending, and it's in Jeru in the Last Order version.
Yeah. So anyway, it's a kind of a super advanced compared to our quantum computers today. A quantum computer that I guess it does all kinds of stuff, in terms of keeping, the forces and in line of the gravitational perturbations on Zalem and Jeru. Basically, it does a lot of different things there. It also is comprised of human brains, if I'm not is part of that, if I'm not mistaken, because I know Lou Collins' brain was actually integrated into Melchizedek. And I guess in a very real way, it would be kind of like if your brain was part of Melchizedek, it'd be like you were in the Matrix, I guess, in that movie. So
the Matrix idea is confusing because why would you use humans for energy if a human it takes more energy to keep a human alive than the energy that human generates?
Yeah. And even if it was a wash, it wouldn't be efficient, would it?
Like it's not efficient. Using humans for computational power, I won't get, but humans are terrible batteries because they take more energy to maintain than they can store and produce.
Well, another thing about it too is I know they showed picture of the humans that were in those pods in the Matrix. If humans don't get some level of exercise, their body degrades pretty fast. And it seems to me that if you were trying to make a human a battery, even if it was efficient, if they don't exercise or they don't use their muscles, they're going to deteriorate so fast. You're not going to have a very good. It's not going to last very long.
Even if you say they're using them for computational power and they don't really care if they're healthy, like muscle wise, so sure, fine, let them not get exercise and get pretty shitty in the muscle department. If they were not moving for years, then when one of them wakes up in the pod, they would not be able to easily open the pod and then run around. That is not the level of atrophy you can recover from with 2 squats and 5 minutes of stretching.
Exactly. And another thing about this too is that, if these humans are not living, I know we're kind of off the topic here a little bit, but that's okay because I think it's important. But if these humans they're not getting exercise, they say die faster because they're not able to, their muscles atrophy and their bone structure deteriorates. How are you going to create more humans? They're going to have to either do that artificially, or they're going to have to
definitely artificially. But my even better question: what are they feeding the humans? Because one of the plot points in Matrix is that the sky is covered, so it's hard, if not impossible, to grow plants. Like, we know plants can be grown with artificial lighting, but that's that extra work.
Well, what I remember from
what are you feeding those humans? Because any animals need to eat plants. So if you're feeding them meat, you still need to produce plants from somewhere. If you're producing plants, well, most plants actually make better batteries than humans. So what are you doing using humans as batteries?
Well, what they feed those humans in the Matrix, from what I remember in the movie, they liquefy the dead and feed them to the living. Feed that.
There's only so long you can stretch that cycle.
I know, because
a human requires way more food during their life than they provide once they're dead.
Yeah, you're going to run out of humans pretty fast, I think.
I think Film Theory did the math on how many humans, and that was with Wall-E. So assuming that we're getting the meat from liquefying obese humans, and that the humans you're feeding aren't very active, then such a person would need, and they have a relatively long life, 7 people over their lifespan. The humans in the Matrix didn't look that fat, so they're not gonna be providing that much meat. But even if they were, you'd have a population shrinking 7-fold with each generation.
Yeah, you'd run out. That's right, you'd run out of humans, wouldn't you?
And that's assuming no one gets a kind of disease that would make them not usable for meat. Okay, this is getting really weird.
Yeah, it is. So let's move on.
While moving back onto Alita, though, the thing that I noticed pretty weird in Alita universe, and this is something that is, to me, I like to use this as an explanation of the magic. In the Alita universe, it's mentioned that brains get used in Melchizedek because they're more efficient than computers, because quantum teleportation of information can happen in brains, whereas in computers, the speed of light is a limit.
Yeah.
Which in normal human brains, the speed of light is still the limit. There is no natural quantum teleportation within human brains. But the fact that there apparently is within the Alita-verse is how I'm explaining all the magic bullshit.
Yeah. Of course, we don't know what the capabilities of computers will be 500 years from now. But since in the Alita-verse they do have human brains in Melchizedek, that tells me they haven't quite figured out how to make their, the chips or whatever you want to call them, the systems that are strictly silicon, how to make them as fast or as, how would you say, reliable in computing or something like that as the human brain.
It'd be funny if they had, but they realized, well, we built this giant brain machine for nothing. We're just not gonna use it. We're gonna have another boring server room. Screw that! Give me the brains. I want to see what a big block of brains looks like.
Dark Star says that humans eat herbivores because they can eat plant matter humans can't digest, and then we eat the herbivores. Now I will say this, Dark Star, I know myself, I'm a vegetarian, so I don't eat meat. I do eat eggs, I do that, but and cheese, I'll eat cheese. But to me, I mean, I get plenty of protein just eating what I eat, because anyway.
Wait, while we're at the dead people thing, wouldn't they get scurvy? Because a human can be healthy on a mostly meat diet, but they can't be healthy on a 100% meat diet. That is how you get scurvy.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
You still need to get plants from somewhere.
Yeah, you definitely do. So
they're just growing. I'm assuming they're just growing plants somewhere in one of those vertical farms. You can look up if anyone interested. You can look up vertical farms.
Yeah. So anyway, that last question, could Zalem be just one node in the larger solar network? I think it could be, but the only thing is I think each of those 4 planets are autonomous. So I don't think, I mean, they can communicate with each other, but they're not cooperative like you would think in a network, at least from what I remember from the manga. They're constantly competing with each other for various reasons, from what I remember. So
Speaking of Zalem and network, it brought back how much the movie the novelization went bonkers when estimating the number of the anchor points of the sky cities. 12. What I know, 12 is a pretty number.
It is a weird number.
But that is a stupid number for sky cities.
That's what they got up there, though. Yeah, I agree with you. I think 12.
If it was 12, as in counting Jeru and Zalem like a pair, and it's 6 pairs of cities like that, so it's 12 cities total, I would be able to buy it. But if it's 12 pairs, you have gone stupid with the amount of sky cities.
Well, evidently they got the resources to do it and the technology to put them up there.
Why would you want to do that, though? Like, a lot of cities technically have the resources a lot of major cities have the resources to have 7 airports, yet pretty much no city has more than 5. Why? You don't need 7 airports in one city. Most cities don't need more than 2 or 3. If it's even relatively bigger cities, there is a reason. Even if a city has the budget to, they won't shove 10 airports around itself.
Well, I think the thing about the number 12 too is it kind of gives you like a 30-degree angle, for between each city, in terms of the angle, around the circumference, So I think that's probably one reason.
If they're making this many cities, you're going to have 2 rings might be. You're going to have 2 rings and not 1. So it's not on one system that if anything crashes, the whole thing crashes and burns. You divide it into 2 rings if you desperately need to have this many damn sky cities. Yes, I know in the manga there was 1 sky city, and there was 1 sky city as in Zalem, and then 2 space cities, Jeru, and the one on the other end that I never remember the name of. I'm talking about the novelization, looking at that and saying,
what was the name?
Hold my beer, I'm gonna make more.
What is the name of that thing? I don't remember now.
Who's the kid behind Alita?
Yeah.
And why is she levitating?
I don't know.
Who put the image there?
Yeah. Well, AI messes up sometimes, I think.
Like that's not you have to look super close to notice it mess up. There's a random kid levitating behind Alita.
Well, they're soldiers, I think, is what it is. But yeah, anyway. So anyway, what does it mean what does consciousness mean if you can travel between planets? Because if you remember at the end of, or toward the end of Last Order during the Zot, where, Alita got blown to bits and then was reassembled, her consciousness, I think, went to Jupiter, didn't it? From what I remember.
Yes, at least communicated with the Zeus computer on Jupiter.
Yeah. And then they reassembled her so she could, beat Toji, I guess. That's the way that worked, I suppose. But
I'm pretty sure it's the being basically killed and then reassembled that messes with consciousness, not travel. That's like saying that that's like if someone had a near-death experience, ended up getting surgery on a different continent, and then was changed after that. And your question isn't how did getting life-saving surgery change them, but how did going to another continent change them? Like how does identity like the near-death experience was the main change here, not the travel. Like the travel wasn't as the travel was part of it, but I'm pretty sure it's the near-death experience that gave her an existential crisis, or rather, the "oh shit, I'm an AI" that gave her an existential crisis.
Well, she wasn't an AI, was she? I think that was just her actual consciousness, wasn't it?
Well, her consciousness ran on what? On magic or the chip?
I don't know that.
Nanobots?
I think when she was in that Imaginos 2.0 body, she got blown to bits or got disintegrated. And then she was reassembled with.
But the chip was still intact.
The chip was intact.
Deckman 10 still had the chip.
Well, anyway, they reassembled her in the Imaginos, what Nova called the Imaginos 2.1 body. So, because it was connected to Melchizedek and I think that quantum computer on Jupiter, wasn't it? Something like that.
Put Batman's comment on more than 4 orbital elevators stretching the possibility of things. I can somewhat accept 6, so we have the pretty 12 number of cities total, but 12 points is.
I think
we've done stupid.
I think 4 is probably a better number, but
4 is good. But if I really want to have 12, then have 6 and I count the cities the double or something. But 12 is just stupid.
Well, it is, but they. In the manga, or what? No, wasn't in the manga, but they did have 12. I mean, so they
had 12 just so they could say 11 of them fell and 1 survived. Well, maybe they wouldn't have fallen if you build like 4 and build them well instead of rushing 12 so you could to completion, skipping have the welding materials because you wanted to brag about having 12.
Well, I know one thing: if you do have 12, it's harder to take down 12. Floating cities or orbiting cities than it would be 4. So maybe
apparently they were so crappily built that they were easier to take down than if there were 4, considering the manga has 4 and they still all exist.
Yes.
Oh, 3 unless you count the one on the ocean.
So what do you think? Is Alita a Martian? Does she have a Martian soul, or was she reborn on Earth and got now an Earth soul, if you want to call it that, because she lost her memory and maybe that has something to do with her soul, I guess. I don't know. Or is all of this just a myth? You know, and she's still who she is no matter what planet she's on.
Probably not the authority to speak on that. But considering Martians and humans aren't separate species, this would probably be less a matter of like soul and more a matter of something akin to national identity, just on planetary scale instead of continental scale.
Yeah. Well, I think if people did adapt to living on Mars, which I think would be a tough thing, but if they did, I think it would take a bunch of generations for them to become a different species. I think.
I do headcanon that there are some differences between Martians and humans that aren't necessarily super explored in the story. We know Venusians basically look like Venusians went wild with the genetic engineering. Venusians are doing their thing. Jovians don't have normal bodies, so it's hard to. So they might as well be a different species by now.
Yeah.
Humans and Martians look very similar. I do have the headcanon that Martians have way thicker skin, as in like physically thicker skin because of the extreme cold, sandstorms, everything, like every type of bad weather at the same time somehow. And they also appear to be kind of smaller on average. We haven't had this many Martian characters, but the organic ones appear to be shorter than on average than the characters we've seen on Earth when compared to the few short points of reference we have. But they're not different enough to classify as a separate species.
Yeah, they're not, because the DNA, for one thing, would be the same, I think, between Martians and Earth or Earthlings. I mean, I think it would take many generations for their DNA to naturally evolve into two separate, self-replicating, beings. I guess.
There's another thing, for Martians to evolve into a separate species, they would need to be essentially cut off from Earth and other human worlds, so there is no interbreeding. As long as there is interbreeding,
then they won't. That's right.
Then again, breeding at all is something that doesn't seem to be happening much in this world. Like, obviously it's happening on the surface and in Zalem and on Mars, but it isn't really happening in Jeru. It's happening in Jeru enough that we have military schools, but it's not happening much in Jeru. It's not happening much in the rest of the solar system. It is happening. We have the Stellar Nursery Society, but it's not happening a lot. So Martians and the surface of Earth with Mars, so the two groups that are doing the most breeding don't have access to each other. So Martians are mostly, they're not really interbreeding that much. It's mostly just with each other. But still, not enough time has passed for them to become a separate species unless major genetic engineering is involved.
Well, I do think that on a smaller scale, that's kind of like what happened with Australia, isn't it? Because there are species of animals on Australia that are nowhere else on Earth. Like koala bears. You don't see any koalas, in North America or in Europe or anything like that, except in zoos, maybe. But
they're the ones in zoos are from Australia, shipped in from Australia.
That's exactly right. So, and the kind of I guess kangaroos would be another one. We don't have any kangaroos here in America, that's for sure.
Are there any animals that have the baby pouches that aren't from Australia, or is that something that only animals from Australia have?
I think that's on. I was about to say I think only Australia, but I do think that possums do have pouches they carry their young in. So.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes, Alita is canonically short.
Yeah, she's 1.5 meters or 4 feet 11. Yeah, that's right. So, well, anyway, that kind of gets us to this concept of diaspora. What that means is that you're separated from your place of birth, and there you are in this new environment, even though maybe you originated somewhere else. Like in my case, I was born in Florida. And I lived in California for a while as a young kid. Then I moved back to Florida. Then I moved to Colorado. Then I moved to North Carolina, and then back to Colorado. But I am separated from Florida. I haven't been in Florida since 2012. So that would be similar to like species, like humans. People on Mars, if they don't have an easy way to get back to Earth, they're strictly stuck on Mars. Even though they may be human, at least in the short run, they'd be human, but they are still Martians, as is Earthlings, or humans on Earth. So anyway, that's the way that looks. So anyway, what does this look like? Well, of course, there's
on the topic of diaspora.
Yeah.
I do like how different groups in different planets in Alita have different main languages.
Yes.
And considering that Mars is the only one, with Jupiter and Venus, they both seem to have one main language, French and Russian. But both Earth and Mars have a double situation. With Mars, with Earth, it's Japanese and English for obvious reasons.
Well, they got some German too, don't they?
On Earth, not much. On Earth, it's
no, I mean on Mars.
And Japanese. On Mars, it's Japanese and German. It's mostly a German.
Yes, well, yeah.
Lot. And maybe, presumably, Italian. Probably on a way smaller scale.
Yeah.
But if it is a reference to the Axis powers having a space program, that I wouldn't be surprised if they also have Italian.
Yeah.
And this is super headcanon self-indulgent on my part, but considering there is there's almost a cult around Maria Skłodowska-Curie, I do like to think there are parts of Mars that speak either Polish or more likely a language that is a mix of Polish with one of the other languages that are already there.
Well, it's kind of like, in countries today. I mean, like, for instance, here in the U.S., certainly English is prevalent. Spanish is next. But there are some people that do speak German here. And there are people that speak a lot of other languages, even those languages that are, pretty, I wouldn't say rare, but, just that are just really very much in the minority, just a small percentage of people, they speak that language, and maybe that's because their ancestry was from that other country, and then they migrated here, So I think even on Mars, you would probably have a diversity of language, but probably 90% of the language that would be spoke there would either be Japanese or German, and maybe some English too, but I think you wouldn't see, I don't think, a lot of Spanish on Mars in this world. I mean, in the Alitaverse, probably not a lot of Spanish on Mars. Probably not a lot of, say, Russian or Chinese. You probably wouldn't see a lot of that on Mars, as opposed to on Earth. You would probably still have, folks that spoke, all those different languages, because that's where they originated. But, language itself also has the, what it also does is it evolves. I don't know if anybody's ever seen any of these videos on YouTube where the guy will take you through a timeline of English, and you go back to English of 400 AD, and you listen to it. It's English, but you don't understand it. I mean, you just don't. You don't really start understanding it until you get to around the year 1400. That's when the words start coming out, what you might recognize a few here. And it's not until maybe the 17 or 1800s, but maybe mid 1700s or so, to where English starts sounding a little bit more recognizable, because it evolves over time itself. What's this in the private chat here?
I tried doing, like, I was a kid, I would try doing this with Polish, and it does have interesting transformations, but it doesn't have as much of a deep time transformation, because it's a language that only got a written form relatively recently. Like, obviously not recently from our normal perspective, but in the compared to the length of time civilization has existed in Europe, Polish getting a written form is relatively recent.
Yeah.
So while there is big difference, it's still readable. Like, the oldest Polish writings are still read. Some are still mostly readable by current day standards.
Well, Polish is a Slavic language, isn't it, Channel?
Yes.
So it's probably got in terms of language, it's probably got an ancestral language that is common to Russian, isn't it? And some other.
It's actually, Polish is in the situation where a lot of the language is Proto-Slavic, but also because of the occupations, I don't mean their job, I mean like territory occupation. I know you can get political here, but some things are impossible to explain without politics. There's a lot of words in Polish that come from German.
Yes.
There has been like an attempt to de-German the language, and everyone agrees that the attempt is just kind of sound weird.
Yeah. Well, we see
no one's going to say Podomka.
We see today, the internet is kind of facilitating the merging of languages, isn't it? I mean, we're seeing words kind of intermingle, between a lot of different language now because of the internet, I think.
With the languages intermingling more, I think it's because with the internet, more people from different regions are introduced to more new concepts.
Yes.
And languages don't have the time to come up with their own words for those concepts. So we just take the word we heard that concept in, which is usually English, and we slightly change it to make more sense in our language, and we stick with that.
Yes.
So that's why so many words are, if you look at all the words, a lot of them are also shared between languages, but with modern ones, it's usually just English word, but slightly tweaked so it's more pronounceable in whatever language you shove it into.
Yeah, and I think that based on where you live too, because I mean, like in this case, where you're on different planets. You know, languages, particularly if you don't have a lot of interaction with the other planets, you know, the average person. I'm not talking about people that are,
They also don't have high-speed internet connecting the planets with each other.
Well, they could, but that latency would get you.
The latency is the kind of a. There's a difference between a couple hours
yes.
latency currently that's happening, not because it takes a couple hours to upload the information, but because, you know, the time zones existing thing, versus a couple of weeks latency between different parts of the solar system.
Well, I think if you're talking about network, I don't think you'd get a couple of weeks, but I do think you could get hours, you know, like for instance, between say here and Mars, if depending on where the planets are, but you know, on average, I guess you would be talking like maybe 6 minutes. You know, you could not do a stream with that kind of delay, which is what latency is. You know, you couldn't have a back and forth conversation very easily, I think.
Okay, but I'm assuming, unless you have again quantum teleportation, I'm assuming that information travels at light speed.
Yeah.
What happens during that time when Earth and Mars, or even better, Earth and Venus, are on opposite sides of the sun?
And it's well, you don't have line of sight, so that's one problem. But yeah, it would be a lot.
The latency gets way worse there. When I was talking a couple weeks, I don't mean when we're next to each other. I mean when we're on the opposite sides of the, or even better, imagine being on Venus and trying to write to someone who's on Jupiter, and Jupiter and Venus are on the opposite sides of the sun right now.
Well, something like email is an example. Let's say you're on the same side of the sun. Email wouldn't be that big a deal. You know, I mean, you send an email and people don't look at their email for hours anyway sometimes. So that wouldn't be that big a deal. But where you had a interaction back and forth, that would be very difficult. A matter of fact, it would be
by text or like sending voice messages.
Yes.
Well, you have a time lag of a number of minutes, but yeah.
Unless
we're completely off track.
Well, unless you could figure out some kind of faster than light, you know, kind of communication system, which people have argued that with quantum entanglement you might get that, but I don't know. I don't think that's possible. But you know,
there was the film Frequency I watched recently where somehow the signal went back in time. That was really weird.
Yeah.
With I think it's Dennis Quaid and Jim Caviezel.
Yeah. Anyway, getting way off track there, but that's all right. So anyway,
there's a time lag of minutes.
Yeah.
Something I like about Mars is how they made it pagan, as in the other planets are either, as far as the two big superpowers, Jupiter and Venus, are atheists as far as we know. Most of the little planetoids and Jeru are either Buddhist or Hindu. I'm so sorry for forgetting which one it is.
Sorry.
Zalem is Christian for some reason, and Mars is pagan.
Really?
Yeah, I kind of thought Zalem was communist, but I guess that's not mutually exclusive.
There's the whole side story about Ido being Ido celebrating Christmas when no one on the surface does, and him recognizing another Zalemite, but in fact he celebrates Christmas.
Well, people in Japan celebrate Christmas, but it's not like we do, you know, in the West, you know, where it's more of a Christian holiday. People in Japan, to them, it's more of a holiday for, you know, I think couples, I think is in Japan is the way I understand it, which I could be totally wrong, but you know, it's a different premise, you know, of Christmas in Japan than Christmas in the U.S. And I know when I went to Malaysia, you know, they celebrate Christmas there too, but it's different. It's a different premise behind that because Malaysia is a Muslim country, so they certainly wouldn't, you know, they wouldn't celebrate the birth of Christ, you know, for sure, you know. So anyway.
Yeah. Well, Batman, what we'd have to do is make sure we had our antenna or whatever receiver we have pointed the right way, or at least have a kind of dish that could take it in without being too precise.
Badman, I think Badman's speaking my language here a little bit when he talks about network packets. If you were doing some kind of data transfers, like, in the IT world, there's something called data replication. If you do asynchronous data replication, you could do this without network packets timing out between planets. You could not do synchronous replication or data transfer because they would time out, So I think that's maybe what you're alluding to there, Badman, if I'm not mistaken. So anyway.
Okay. Well, it's actually around half that. It's around 8 minutes.
No, it's about
8 minutes.
8 minutes. Yeah, it's 8 minutes, Dark Star Shadow, I think. But
then it may be a bit under or over, since the orbit around the sun isn't round, it's elliptical, but I'm pretty sure it's not 15 minutes.
Right.
Well,
it's closer to 8.
Yeah, it's 8. Yeah. Anyway, let's look at maybe some examples of individuals, that would be living in this time period in the 26th century. And one of them would be someone called what they would call a thermosphere exile. And that doesn't mean they're exiled by a government. It means what they are is they're living on a space platform. That would be like in Jeru, could even be considered Zolom, although they're in the atmosphere. Certainly, around Jupiter and Venus, that would be this kind of person right here. They're not living on the surface. They're living on a space platform, And of course, in terms of Venus, one of the things they would have to contend with a lot would be solar flares or solar storms, more so than we would on Earth or they would on Mars or Jupiter. So, and of course here, this is kind of a supposition, I guess AI came up with, but tools and weapons would be made from repurposed orbital debris. Okay, if there was that. I know we have a lot of orbital debris around Earth, so I think that would be a possibility there for sure. And if they had a lot of satellites around some of these other planets, then they would have a lot of orbital debris there too, because satellites would wear out. They would get hit by, objects and would, be, torn up and stuff like this, So the thing about this, to survive in this kind of environment, you're going to have to be very, how would you say, versatile. You would have to, as it suggests there, you'd be in a constant mode of improvising to stay alive. Any thoughts about that, or maybe there's a little bit of a disagreement, particularly with that last?
Well, it largely depends where are you in terms of relative to that planet, because the planet could block you if you're in its shadow, but you would need to have a kind of Faraday cage, because the solar wind would get absorbed by a Faraday cage. I'll spell it here.
I like Badman's orbital debris around Earth is called Starlink. I love that, Badman.
That's how it's spelled, after Michael Faraday.
Yeah, Faraday. Yeah, Faraday cage. Yeah. Yeah, I know someone that was having problems with. It's kind of like what astronauts see on the moon. When you go on the moon, they have these like little, kind of like light that that they see. And it's like from cosmic, rays and stuff like that. But it would be similar, from what you would have to protect yourself from a Faraday cage. But this individual I'm thinking of, they were having problems where they would see these like streaks of light and stuff like this. And their husband actually built a Faraday cage around this kind of an electrical, kind of thing that they had there, and those visions stopped. So that was kind of interesting, I think, So I think that might be what you're alluding to there, Chaos. Yeah. Anyway, any thought about some of these individuals that are living on these platforms?
You'd have to get resupplied out there.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that the folks in Zalem, they had to get supplied from Earth, didn't they?
They did, right.
Now, they could have stuff like hydroponic gardens and stuff like that.
But the amount of acreage it takes for just one person is a lot. And telling that however many people, I mean, it'd be like any major urban center where you have to transport in from outside to get the supplies.
Yeah.
So they had the freight tubes.
Then the Zalem actually has a very small population compared to the area, so I'm assuming only a part of the platform is actually occupied by people, because when we do see inside of Zalem, like the short part that we see it does seem to be pretty packed. The residential areas seem pretty packed, but then they say
there's a lot of space taken up by Melchizedek and the reactor core.
The reactor core, I'm assuming, is on Zalem, so you don't have to handle cooling. It's up. It's really high up where it's cold, so it's automatically cooled by where it is.
Well, you'd have to put the air in.
Yeah, you
transport the heat out by convection.
Okay, good point.
We could have some extreme HVAC too. I mean, that would.
Right, you could.
Mentioned in
the thing. It's just the way ventilation works is you need to put hot air out and pull cool air in. So you'd have a circulation going where you pull in air from outside and push out air. That's how air conditioning works. Well, it's a simple way of how air conditioning works: is you're pumping hot air out of your house,
like a heat pump, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's at the beginning of Last Order. It's mentioned by Nora, I think, like one of the Zalamite kids, that they've estimate there's about 4,000 people still alive on Zalem, and that means that 80% of the population died in 2 weeks, meaning that the starting population on Zalem before the massacre was 5 times that 4,000, so it was at about 20,000 only, which for a city is very little. Like for a big, it's be a big town, but they don't have town architecture. They have big city architecture. It's very packed, meaning they either have very bad spatial planning. The traumatized kid was very bad at math, or they just packed all the people in Zalem into a relatively small space. So that's why you have so few people, but the architecture still looks packed.
It's funny.
From what you've seen in the video game, it's basically a dormitory thing where people have their kind of apartments, and that's it. It repeats over and over and over again.
Well, I remember doing a measurement of from the movie, Zalem from the movie, that the diameter of Zalem's like 5 miles, and
how much in kilometers?
That would be about 8 kilometers, something like that. Around that, but anyway, they have 4,000 people on there. Zalem, you got something that's 8 miles. That the diameter is 8 miles, and they have 4,000 people. I'm not sure they have
20,000.
Well, maybe it is. Well, if it's 20,000, it's even worse because
20,000 before the massacre.
They don't have enough space to grow food there for all those people. That's why they got to rely on food from the farms down on Earth.
Yes, that's including the very wide space elevator stem that is in the middle of the city.
Yes.
Do you think apartments with a view of the elevator stem cost more? Like it's a.
You mean prime real estate, right?
Yeah. Do they cost more because our big, proud, giant pillar, or do they cost less because you have less of a view because half the view is covered by the giant pillar?
Well, I do think that if you had like a apartment or something that was closer to the edge where you could see the Earth, kind of like what Nova had, in the movie, to me that would be more costly than something.
And that definitely would be more costly.
Yeah. Anyway, let's see what Dog said. 3 kilometers in the air and 5 kilometers up. Yeah, I think I measured 2 miles up in the air and 5 miles in diameter. But I don't know.
And that's 5 kilometers is 3.1 miles.
Higher up than it is wide.
3.1 miles. Okay.
Yeah, because 5 kilometers up. Well, let's see.
3.1 miles.
Yeah.
Yeah. In
That's,
miles, it's 3.1.
That's not very high. Well, that would be okay, I guess. But I think, that might be right. Yeah, I think that's right. 3 kilometers would be about 2 miles, round figures. So anyway, let's see. Apartments overlooking Dome Park are likely more premium. Would be more expensive. Yeah, that's probably true, Bad Man.
Apartments with a direct exit onto, actually that might also be a matter of temperature, because when we see on Zalam, when they go into the baby factory or the core of Zalam, they're dressed, they have warmer clothes than when they're walking around the park. And some of the more residential areas, there is also pretty cold apparently in some of the residential areas. So maybe the quality of the real estate is also counted by the heating, because maybe only some parts of the residential areas are actually properly heated.
Well, I do know going up, when you're speaking of temperature, if every 1,000 feet you go up, the temperature drops on average between 3 and 4 degrees Fahrenheit. And if you're up 5 miles or up 2 miles, let's say 3 kilometers, 2 miles, that's probably 10,000 feet. That's likely to be 30 to 40 degrees colder than it would be on the surface of the earth.
It probably isn't that cold even in the colder parts of Zalam.
Well,
but it would be
without the wind, it would be more bearable without the wind blowing on you.
You have a really good barriers. I'm assuming that's also against wind. They're probably also warmer because they have the reactor core. Like the reactor core is the main form of heating.
And maybe they can transfer that heat throughout the city efficiently too. So that's probably a good point.
Yeah, that solves the problem of heating the city and of cooling the reactor core. We're using the extra heat to heat up the city.
Yeah, that would work, I think.
Given what it was made for originally, I'm pretty sure it's insulated.
Yeah. But I do know that when you
test drive spaceship.
When you go up on Pikes Peak, here in Colorado, you go up on Pikes Peak, down in Colorado Springs, it could be like 86 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 25 degrees Celsius. You go up the top of Pikes Peak, it is 0 degrees Celsius. So, I mean, it's a pretty dramatic drop. And this is in the summertime too, by the way. So, it could be, temperature can drop pretty quickly, so they'd have to have a really efficient form of heating, and doing it with the extra heat, from nuclear reactor, I guess would do that. So
it sometimes takes until April or May for the snow in the Tatry Mountains to melt.
Yeah. Anyway, we kind of got off the subject there. That's okay. So anyway, on Mars itself, humans, the people living there, they got a whole different thing, going. I mean, their environment is so drastically different. They have to deal with dust storms, like on Earth, what we would call maybe dust devils to tornadoes, they would have a similar thing there on Mars, and they would have to, and of course, being on Mars is colder. I mean, certainly in the summertime near the equator, the temperature can be like 75 degrees Fahrenheit, 22 or 2 degrees
you
Celsius.
You wouldn't necessarily feel
22
that.
22 degrees Celsius is a comfortable temperature.
You wouldn't feel that because of how thin the atmosphere is without terraforming.
Yes.
Mars goes down to minus 40.
Register it.
Well, Mars can go. Yeah, Mars can go a lot colder than that channel. It can go
negative
down
190 in Fahrenheit.
That is negative. That is colder than Russia.
Yes, it is.
It's cold enough to form dry ice, actually.
Yeah, it is. So this is what these folks, this is what they have to deal with, and they have to build structures that can withstand that. And of course, on Mars, we know in the manga they got that dome, that's over it. It's many miles, kilometers, whatever, in size.
I think it has a religious purpose. I'm not sure why you're using the AI render when there was a really cool shot from the manga itself.
Well,
I forgot about what the topic was, or else I would have done screenshots from Martian Memory.
Well, anyway,
the video game shows it pretty well. You're running around inside the dome city.
Also, we don't really have I don't remember there were any cavern cities. There were underground buildings, but they weren't in caverns. They were fully underground.
Yeah,
with just the windows being on the ceiling and peeking out.
Well, I do know one of the things that NASA talks about, in terms of colonizing Mars, is that initially they may take advantage of some of the caves. Now that's not in the manga here, obviously, but they do say, initially they may have people, living in these caves. Of course, they're going to be excavated and they're going to be reinforced by, engineering, for sure, but that's a way to protect them from solar radiation, as an example, because remember, Mars doesn't have a magnetic field, nor does it have a very good atmosphere. So humans are going to be, they're going to be more vulnerable to radiation than they would be on Earth, So anyway, the bottom line here is the people on Mars, it's different than just being adaptive or something like that. Survival depends on, are they living together in a community and cooperating with each other, because the conditions are so extreme, that they're going to have to depend on each other, I think.
It's a shame you didn't mention again the Martian religion, because the people, the gardeners responsible for the maintenance of the Baldahim are also called priestesses. So this is clearly some level of religious organization that is maintaining the livability of the planet, which you would feel like maybe clashes with the way that, at least in Mars Chronicle, Mars is presented and in the past as very pagan. They believe in fairies. They believe that the first settlers who died on Mars became like spirit creatures who can now control the elements on Mars. They are very spiritual, but in the pagan meaning, whereas modern Mars is, in modern Mars we have priestess. The gardeners are referred to as priestesses. So we've clearly gone more in the direction of a united religion. So both in the past, considering how much their kids mention it, and in the present, considering the livability of the planet depends on it, religion plays a big part here. And religion is a vector of culture. So the survival as a community does tie into religion. And again, and when people are desperate but don't have the direct means to fix something, they are also more likely to turn to religion.
Yes.
AKA Martians having the crappiest but also earliest versions of cyber technology, being the first and kind of shoestring colony. It's not that surprising that they turn to religion and that they continue being religious while having a constant civil war for like last 300 years.
Agreed.
And that would also partially explain why Martians are the only system where there isn't really an attempt by any major group to become immortal. The rest of the solar system has methylization. Meanwhile, Mars just we're fine, which again makes more sense if you think how that they're religious, because, well, you're not as upset about dying in this world if you believe you can live forever through an afterlife.
Well, I do think, now I don't know how this plays out in the manga on Mars, but I do know that, for instance, like Nova as an example, has obtained, biological immortality. So, I mean, I don't think it's limited to, just that, so I think because of the technology he has 500 years more advanced than this, he can basically live indefinitely, I guess. So I don't know if they have that kind of technology on Mars, but anyway.
My one point about specifically why I think this is the thing that applies here, why they're not scared of death, because religion. When Erica and Yoko first meet, and Erica is comforting Yoko while they're walking through that minefield, she specifically she tells her to look up at the sky, because if you die while looking at the sky, you automatically go to heaven, and then you can tell God a wish. And she says that if she goes to heaven, she's gonna wish for God to drop both moons on those assholes.
She's been good.
Yeah, which again, the whole dying isn't that scary because, well, you're on Mars and looking at the sky, so you automatically go to heaven. Again, religion plays a massive part in the Martian mindset, which, yeah, the fact that they have a unified specific God and heaven while also being pagan in the here and now. And also Zoe in the newer chapters, what I'm pretty sure most people didn't read, apparently briefly communicated with God with Master.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mars is apparently just a hotspot both for religion in the organized sense, in a monotheistic sense, in a spirit of our ancestors sense. Martian is both very religious and very pagan and just spirituality all over the place. And again, one more thing with Mars's insistence on religion, when Alita is being questioned about the attack on the princess, sorry, on the queen, Zoe, and she swears she didn't do it. Not Zoe, Zazie.
Yes.
Zazie says that she can't swear because she has no parents, she has no country she's loyal to, and she has no God. So she can't be trusted seriously. The emphasis on you have no God. What could you possibly swear on?
Well, I think that religious slant that you're saying, Channel, is kind of that feeds into the Martians trying to be. They have to be communal. They have to cooperate with each other.
I mentioned that. It's interesting to me how much how many different categories of religiousness Martians manage to pull off at the same time.
Yeah.
Compared to other parts which other parts of this universe are also very religious in their own way, but they generally just stick to one or maybe two categories of religion, whereas Mars is triple dipping at least.
Agreed. Anyway, let me move on. Then we got the individuals. Now, these would be mostly, I think, total replacement cyborgs. I think, these would be, cyborgs that they're kind of, well, it said here, it kind of refers to them as being like nomads. But, they're mostly technology, I think. And that they would probably, it says carrying sacred circuit relics. I don't know if I'd call it that. I would say that they would need to be, at least have access to, if not carrying, spare parts somehow.
Who wrote the presentation, by the way?
Say again, Channel?
Who wrote the presentation, by the way?
This is AI generated that I kind of wordsmith.
Because you yourself said you didn't agree with it. I'm thinking maybe Max, and you probably read through it and approve it or change it. And Max, you would probably use more screenshots.
I didn't change that part of it yet, but so I would think it would be more of a, they need to have spare parts. I don't know if I'd call them sacred circuit relics or not, but.
And again, ruins of orbital elevator as pilgrimage sites, but as far as we know, Mars didn't have an orbital elevator.
Yeah, well, I don't think this mentions elevate. Well, yeah, that's right. It does, doesn't it? Yeah, it does. Mars. I don't think this
thing was trained on anything related to Alita. It's just general sci-fi media.
I think.
And it heard somewhere the term
But didn't they have like 12 of those cities? Was there only one Iron City? I guess in the movie.
The orbital elevators were on Earth. I think maybe some of the bigger moons of Jupiter and Saturn might have them, but we've seen Mars, as far as we know, never had them. It just had the baldachims.
Yeah, but this could be Earth. Certainly Venus and Jupiter wouldn't have elevators either. Only Earth would have elevators. And of course, survival for these people would be, they'd have to learn from their past, is what that interpreting the past correctly would be. They'd have to learn from mistakes and not make that mistake again. I think.
Earth didn't have any true AIs. Like everything that feels like AI on Earth is either run by a weak AI or by a cyborg. So AI goes whispering corrupted guidance doesn't hold up if this is happening on Earth, because again, Earth, aside from Zalam, didn't do mind uploads, and Earth overall had no true AIs except Melchizedek. which isn't on the surface and doesn't have access to the surface and doesn't care much about the surface.
Well, they probably had AI before the fall. They probably had
like ChatGPT AI, not human level AI.
Well, yeah, but that would be 200 AI 200 years in the future compared to now is going to be quite different, I think.
Yeah, if it was that good, they would be using it instead of using human brains for everything. If you had good AI, you would use your decent AI on Deckman. I'm pretty sure it's easier to make if you can make decently working robots with general intelligence. I'm pretty sure it would be easier to make those than to figure out how to shove a human brain into whatever those shooting things were.
Well, they definitely figured out how to shove a human brain into
Exactly. They figured out how to shove a human brain, which means I'm assuming they couldn't figure out how to do it with an AI, or they really, really, really didn't want to do it with an AI, even though an AI that could do that already exists. We already have military AIs that could do that. And they didn't do that. They had to shove in a human brain in it. So they either really didn't want the AI or they couldn't do the AI.
Well, in Alita's case, in the Imaginos body, she's not a cyborg. She's an android. So she, what kind of processing is going up in that brain chip of hers? Is it a mesh of? Is it a combination of her consciousness and AI, or what is it? I don't think it goes into that in the manga because they didn't know what AI was, or Kashiro probably didn't know what AI was at that point. Okay, well, anyway, any more thoughts about this one?
Kind of becomes less fun to discuss when you realize that the topic was like the points are randomly generated instead of being references to something from the series.
Well, I think the points are these are the individuals. These are some of the individuals that you might encounter in this kind of a interplanetary society. I think that's what the references are.
What is being told by a child? The God thing. This is being told by a child, so this doesn't mean this is what everyone believes, but it implies this is what a decent portion of people believe for the child to have heard. Unless her parents were religious extremists, but I'm assuming they maybe weren't, they were just normal drunk people.
Any other thoughts there, Chaos? Where's he going? I had to. Oh, let's see. What's he? Oh. All right, we can move on, I guess. Now, I think they don't mention this in the manga, but they probably do. If they established a colony on Mars and they built these cities around Venus and Jupiter, they probably have some kind of outpost or some kind of I guess you would call it facility or something like that on the moon.
They canonically do. It's mentioned that when the onion ring detached, it was at risk of crashing into a city on the moon. So we don't have a big lunar civilization, but we do have a moon city in canon.
Yeah.
And if you want to talk about the moons, why not put in the moons from Jupiter and Saturn, since those are the recognizable, not Saturn, Jupiter and
well, this could be any of
those are the recognizable ones.
This could be any of the moons, Channel. It could be not just our moon. It could be Europa. It could be Io or Io, rather. It could even be Phomos and Deimos for that matter. In terms of our moon. Even say Europa, let's say, or Callisto, they're so far out, there's not going to be a lot of light, on those moons. So to survive, you're going to have some kind of lighting systems,
Here I agree. Bioluminescence in Venusians would actually be really cool, since they're already going all in on genetic engineering, and we know they have human dog hybrids, so having human anglerfish hybrids would be pretty cool.
Yes, it would. Would be a merger of biology and technology for sure. They could do that with some kind of genetic engineering as well. So they could make.
If anyone read all tomorrows makes me think of the tool breeders. That's what all I'm gonna say.
Oh. Well, the key here on these folks, these kind of individuals, is they would need to be able to survive in a very low lit, environment, where it's dark. Probably over time, their eyes would probably adapt, to where it could pull in more, light, probably. Maybe that's one of the reasons Alita's eyes are big. Maybe, that she's been on Mars, and certainly the sunlight on Mars is not as intense as it is here. So, maybe over time their eyes, grow bigger, I guess. I don't know. So any more thoughts, channel? What's this say? Venus doesn't have any moons. That's correct. 2 moons on Mars are too small to be useful. Well, you could probably put something like weapons on those things.
Like a scout station, but too small to be useful, as in for anything to be permanently civilized.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to survive very well on those things.
The Jovian toposphere. They weren't living on the moons; they were living on the toposphere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Venus does have some moons, though. Like, it doesn't have any?
No, they don't have any moons.
No moons on Venus or orbiting it.
You could probably survive on the moons of Jupiter, but I kind of agree that they didn't do that in the manga. But you could survive probably on Europa. You'd have to have a pretty serious heating system because or any of those moons would be pretty cold,
It's kind of a similar situation as with Mars, except slightly worse. Slightly worse because supplying missions would take way longer.
Yes.
Yeah. There is the thing though that there's water. The gas giants do have water, and methane on their moons. You just have to refine that or defrost it.
Well, Europa has a lot of
water.
Yeah. So get water. You could subsist on that. Now, growing plants would be a challenge. You'd have to. I don't know how you'd do it. You'd probably have to have some kind of either shipped in soil or synthetic soil, and then create an environment that would be advantageous for plants to grow. To me, that would be pretty tough to do on Europa. On Io, I'm not sure you could go do anything on Io because it's volcanic. So I'm not sure about that.
Well, yeah, it's the gravitational force of Jupiter is like triggering volcanic eruptions because it's close enough.
What's this? Dark shadow. We could consider that they don't use AI for the same reason Warhammer.
Oh, so the Imperium of Man, which is humanity in the year 40,000, doesn't allow like sentient computers. They do have the cyborgs called the Adeptus Mechanicus, but they are as I'll say, an autonomous faction. They work for the Emperor, but they are not directly under orders most of the time. But the Adeptus
would be something more
Mechanicus
like the Deckmen.
No. They're worse than Deckmen. The Adeptus Mechanicus takes the corpses of the people they killed and they convert them into essentially cyborg zombies. That's what the Adeptus Mechanicus does.
Cripe. Damn. Zombie cyborgs. Jeez, I hadn't thought of that.
I mean, we do have necro soldiers. That's kind of that.
Yeah, that's right. They do have necro
right,
soldiers.
But the person's body gets, it's less pretty.
It's less pretty than an Alita,
but it's worse.
I don't know how they would, take care of it.
I can show you Adeptus Mechanicus. It's a little horrifying, but it's just a tabletop game.
Well, yeah. The thing of it is, though, it seems like
I got it's a book series.
If they're converting a human to like a zombie to what they do with the degradation of their bodies, their skin, and all that. I mean, it's going to decay, right? How do they handle that? Or do they care?
The body gets replaced by metal and parts. You basically become a totally replacement cyborg. The corpses become total replacement cyborg. Well, I have a picture here. I'll show you. I'll share it with you.
All right.
What the Adeptus Mechanicus looks like.
Okay.
Allow. No. Here it is. The Adeptus Mechanicus. So this is.
It doesn't look that horrifying.
Right.
It's
this
reached
guy
that
isn't
level.
fully assimilated yet. This guy is like nothing left almost. The tech priest have almost nothing
the guy
left.
it's kind of blurry. It's the level of so many tubes that I can't really see what's going on. I can't really be horrified because I can't really see what's going on.
Oh, when you see them put the like little spider bots into a body, that's disgusting in Warhammer. Like the parts are growing out of his back. Like this guy had that part growing out of his back.
Oh.
Mechanical part growing out of his back.
How is he holding balance? Wouldn't that be way heavier than the front of his body?
They've got anti-gravity in the 41st millennium.
It better.
Now this guy has like none of his body left. He's basically just a spider bot with his brain inside. That's it.
How do they keep the brain from deteriorating?
Same as motorball idiots.
They have high quality preservative chemicals. It's even worse is what the Emperor is in Warhammer. He's basically just a corpse, but his ghost still communicates and has psychic powers.
And holds open a portal. No. He closed the portal and holds a lighthouse that makes people slightly less lost when they're getting attacked by demons.
Well, yeah,
in a different portal.
Because you don't go faster than light in Warhammer. I'll do another live stream. I don't want to sidetrack you guys too much, but I could do one. Well, let's talk about Warhammer. So,
yeah,
my brother played it more than I did.
I'd definitely be interested in that.
Because, my brother was willing to spend money to play the game because you have to buy all the figures and dice and so on.
Oh, Jesus.
But there are also video games based off of it, so they're pretty fun.
I've seen somewhere when someone was referencing Warhammer, their segue went like, for those familiar with deodorant, here's a summary of what the Warhammer is.
Well, yeah. Originally they had. Yeah, he's working with Amazon to make a live action Warhammer 40,000 series.
You'll have your stream going before then, won't you, Chaos?
I will. I should. I'm figuring it out.
We're
gonna watch this for the North Star and finish that.
Yeah, I'm not interested in buying all those characters and.
You don't have to. They made video games of it, and that's what I own. My brother spent his money buying some figures for that, but I didn't. I just bought video games of Fire Warrior and Space Marine.
Oh, okay.
So saved me money, but it's still playing with the rules of Warhammer.
Yes. All right. Well, anyway, moving on from here, I guess. I guess at this point in civilization, and of course the image looks similar, but at this point where I guess humanity, I guess you could say, is becoming more technology than it is organic.
So Jovians.
Yeah.
And
Jovians are like the Adeptus Mechanicus.
Why did they shove the same picture of the guy with the backpack? The background changes the same guy with a backpack and wire connecting to the backpack and a walking stick.
Yeah, well, that's basically...
You could have put a Jovians picture. All the points here apply to Jovians.
Okay, but it's not limited to Jovians, though. I mean,
it's not, but it's mostly like in fiction broad. No, it's not Jovians. In the Alita setting, it's Jovians. The only large group this applies to is Jovians.
Yeah. But anyway, if you have beings that are post-human, in other words, they're strictly mechanized, they're strictly systems, their bodies are not going to be as vulnerable to, say, solar radiation, even to vacuum for that matter, as, say, a human would be. They would be more survivable in tougher environments. So in this particular case, the key to survival here is, you evolving, or the human race evolving into this kind of a technological based being. And I do know in the manga, they do backups, that they say we say backups here, but they are able to copy consciousness onto systems in the manga. Nova's done it, for himself, for sure, and they're able to do that. And he actually brought Alita back to life, I guess, by using some of this, archived consciousness of Alita and putting it in a brain chip. Now we've had discussions was her consciousness really there, or was it just a set of algorithms that were behaving the same way Alita behaved when she was a human? Your guess would be as good as mine on that. But
I'd say she's conscious, but that's because we have POV some parts from her perspective. If she has a perspective,
yes,
then whether or not she's a person is still, you can still be debated, but she still is something or someone. Considering she has a perspective, she's got to be at some level conscious.
Well, we've had streams where we've debated whether or not Alita in her Imaginos bodies, whether she's still human, and we say that she has retained her humanity, her I guess you would say not personality, but her psychological makeup, and we all think, that she's still human. Now that's because we're biased, because we like Alita, But, we've had questions of whether or not if you were able to copy a consciousness, would that still be the same consciousness that was in the original body? We've had that discussion several times.
I think that would still be a consciousness, but it's not the same consciousness that was before. It's a copy. Since Alita is a fictional character, the question here isn't, is she a person? Is she the same person? Is she still a character with the same amount of agency, or is she the same character?
Yeah.
Those are the questions, because like I said earlier, people in fiction, the line if a character is human or a demon or an angel or a cyborg or a fairy, they aren't that important. Like, it's a neat gimmick and it's a nice visual distinction, but character-wise, it still functions relatively the same.
Yes.
It's a fictional character, whether it's a fictional AI or a fictional flesh and blood person, there's still the same amount of fictional, so they still have the same amount of personhood.
Well, in terms of consciousness, it'd be similar to identical twins. Do they share consciousness? The answer is no. They don't. They're two separate entities.
And if you have the mind reading technology or mind uploading, whatever, then you could still resync with your double. You can upload the memories that happened between you while you were that differed since the original copy was created. With a twin, you can talk a lot, you can catch up, but you can't literally just upload your memories to them to resync.
Exactly.
So I still think that's not exactly the same.
Well, let's say I got myself cloned. Okay.
Terrible idea. If you get cloned and you're old, the clone will have terrible health since it's a baby with the telomere length of an old man. But okay, go ahead.
Well, I'm not as old as some people my age.
Well, you're not as old as some people, but still, getting cloned when you're already old.
Yeah, when you're older, your telomeres are not as long, and you're that kind of thing. Your DNA
and all the radiation in your DNA that is having fun. Also, the DNA that your body hasn't used for a while is just a jumbled mess that just got squished into a tiny corner that we're not sure if the body can untangle when it needs it again. So the things that it needed when you were a child. that you won't need again, and as long as there's not a mass in the when that's somewhere in the body start a healthy version, that's fine. Unless you're cloning someone from your own cells, in which case they're probably gonna get the cells where it's a jumbled mess, and have fun and time doing that while trying to figure out how to create skin.
Gee, thanks, channel, I think.
No, I'm just saying that the real problem of cloning isn't personhood. It's a million medical complications.
Yes, I agree with you. So anyway, what's this right here? The Batman androids are artificial intelligence. Yeah, well, okay. And Alita's intelligent, her brain biochip was copied to from her organic brain. Yeah, that's kind of what we were talking about on a couple of these other streams, Batman, that she retains her, her psychological makeup. She's still her. That at least. That's the way we see her as a fictional character anyway. But anyway, that's...
If the point is that if she's not an AI because she's not originally made as a computer program, there was this term UI, uploaded intelligence.
Yes.
That was used in the show Pantheon. I don't know where it started, but I first started in Pantheon, and I think it's more fitting here. If you want to distinguish between AIs that are based on someone but not a direct copy, like the AR series, and AIs that are a direct upload of someone and believed to have continuous, to be the direct continuation and not just a copy. They are a copy, but they're a way, way closer copy.
Well, they're a system-based copy, the AR series is, but they're copies,
Whereas the Alita, you could say, was a UI, the uploaded intelligence.
Yes.
Although in that series, they kind of chickened out of the whole which one is real by making it so you have to destroy the brain to create an uploadable version. So you can't have both the original and the scanned version existing at the same time.
Well, anyway, what this says is, will humans eventually, well, this is not part of this thing, but, the offshoot of this would be, you reckon humans will ever become strictly systemized? In other words, we'll leave our next step in our evolution will be, more of a, kind of a technology leap, where we no longer are organic. We are now technology.
Probably not. Unless there is something that immediately forces people to do it, and I still think most people wouldn't do it. Just that unless there is something that wipes out everyone who hasn't done it. No, people love technology, but you know what people also love? A lot of things that you kind of need an organic body for.
Yeah.
Also, there will definitely be a religious movement around both uploading and resisting uploading.
All right, well, I think we hit this one good enough. What do you think? Is Zalem an antagonist, or are they kind of some kind of detached divine observer?
Neither. I'd say they're a relic that's kicking along.
They're probably a little bit of both.
The entire system on Earth is a relic that's kicking along.
Well, how does Zalem view Alita's not just her transformation, how does Zalem view Alita for that matter? I know how Nova views her. Yeah, he wants, Go ahead, Jen.
The movie Zalem or the manga Zalem? Because those are two very different questions. The movie Zalem.
Yeah.
Well, we haven't seen much of them, and we don't know how much. Most of Zalem, from they're watching, they just know her as the new girl from Motorball. They see her as entertainment. They probably don't know she's a berserker. She's just cool new. She's just new Motorball player that also looks better than the others. Yay!
Well, I think though that I know that Nova knows that she has that.
Nova absolutely knows.
Yeah, Nova knows. He knows that she has an antimatter microreactor heart, and he knows that she knows Panzer Kunst, and he also knows she has the berserker body. So he's got to put 2 and 2 together, or 1 and 1 and 1 together, to make 3. I think.
Yeah, Nova is a separate question, but Zalem as a general population, they probably just see her as a sports celebrity, as an entertainment.
Well, I know
They don't
Nova.
see her as an equal. They don't see her as a friend. They don't see her as something like way below. She's entertainment. She's like a sports celebrity.
Well, I think Nova really thinks she's entertaining because he, elected not to kill her, right? Because he's being entertained by her. So
Nova's a separate situation.
yes. Okay, Zolamite Society is more of a bully that overestimates her position in the grand scheme of things. Okay. Floating city is a metaphor or unreachable purity or for unreachable purity or corrupted divinity. I don't think there's any unreachable purity here. I think it's all corrupted divinity. It's not divinity either.
I think it is for corrupted divinity, you can call that, but also one more thing, not unreachable purity, but unreachable goals, unreachable visions in general. For the entirety of the first series, we're trying to, we're not really trying to get to Zalem for the entirety, but someone is always trying to get to Zalem, and when they're not trying to get to Zalem, they're trying to destroy Zalem, they're trying to run away from Zalem. Yeah. Everything revolves around Zalem. Zalem is, I don't remember if it's only in the anime, or if it's actually in the manga, or if it's somewhere else I've seen it. Yeah. Zalem isn't a place, it's an idea.
Yeah.
It's not important if Zalem is actually reachable or destructible or anything like that. It's not supposed to be reachable or destructible. Zalem isn't a place, it's an idea.
Well, I know Hugo wants to get there because he has a misconception of it.
Yeah, like for Hugo, Zalem is the idea of the better place, like the place that fixes all of his problems. For Dan, Zalem is the idea of the one singular evil that if you destroy it, everything else would just be better. We just have to focus on getting rid of this one thing and everything else will work. For Nova, Zalem is the idea of conformity, which he hates.
Yeah, he thinks it's better, but he don't know. He just thinks it is. That's his idea.
For Shirin and to an extent Ido, Zalem is the idea of nostalgia. Zalem is supposed to be a place that you can reach or an object that you can destroy. It's supposed to be an idea. And when we do get to Zalem, as in Last Order, Zalem immediately loses its meaning because once it is reachable, once it is destructible, it's not this symbol of an idea. It's just a place.
Yeah.
So it loses that meaning. It loses the allure. It loses the plot significance. The entirety of the first series plot is always in some way connected to Zalem.
Well,
even the romantic arcs, Hugo and Alita. Hugo constantly wants to go to Zalem. Hugo, Alita, and Figure 4. Well, Alita is constantly being dragged away from Figure 4's mission because Zalem, and also, they're fighting the Barjack, who are obsessed with destroying Zalem. Everything around Zalem, and then we go to Last Order, we finally have access to Zalem, and very few things revolve around Zalem because it's not that it lost its allure once you actually get there.
Well, it's because when they do get there, they're hit with reality. I mean, the reality, is kind of going to kind of kick down the door of the what their idea of it was. They think of it as some kind of panacea, some kind of utopia. Then they get there, Alita and others get there and they see what it really is. It's none of that, so I think
it's like someone who really wanted to live in an anime world going to actual Japan.
Yes, exactly. That's a very good.
And finding out it's just a country and not not anime world.
Yeah, it's just a country with people in it.
Or someone whose only idea of America comes from rom-coms and Disneyland tours, and they end up in a normal city in America and they're just big empty with lots of cars.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, thinking America's like Disney World and then going to Denver, Colorado. Denver, Colorado is a pretty neat place, but it ain't Disney World. So that's what that would be like. So. Well, how would Alita's ethos evolve once humanity spreads across the solar system? Well, I think in the case of, when Alita wakes up, humanity has spread across the solar system. And I think she is still what she is. What do you guys think?
She's not the one who's been doing the spreading or, directly involved. She's actually been involved in preventing the spreading. So And she doesn't even find out if remember that or find out if that worked until years after waking up. So I don't think that really affects her. Most people only really care about things that are either affecting them or people they personally know.
Yes. Yeah, she tried to destroy all this, didn't she? She was going to blow up all the colony ships, remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, in Operation Mile Wharf. By the way, you folks in the chat, there's not a lot of you out there, but you can answer these questions in the chat too, by the way.
Why is Chaos muted?
What fragments of her myth would each colony reinterpret? In other words, how? Yeah, go
Wait,
ahead.
does that mean like if Alita became a super popular franchise and also humanity became interstellar, which planet would Alita be the most popular story on?
Yeah.
Mars, I'm guessing.
I'm guessing Mars. I think Mars. Yeah.
I have even though it wasn't written Mars.
Well, she did save Earth by winning the Space Angels winning the Zot. So I mean, maybe she'd be super popular there as well. But her memories would
Earth has a million stories about Earth being special and perfect, and the greatest place ever.
I don't think she'd think Earth is special. I think she'd probably want to go back to Mars.
She does go back to Mars and leave a version of herself on Earth. So she did both in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, she did.
But the version of her that made the choice decided to go to Mars.
Yeah.
Because Erica wouldn't stop blowing up her phone and her friends.
With text messages. Imagine her children looking up in the night sky on Mars rather than being told by their parents, wave to Alita. Okay, yes.
Motorball seems to only be a thing on Earth, so
it'd only be a thing on Earth. That's right.
I'm guessing Mars has its own sports that are specifically designed for the lower gravity. Either that or Martians are adapted to lower gravity. Then they just function like us, just in that the other gravity. But if they went to Earth, like if a non-cyborg Martian went to Earth, they would immediately feel way heavier and probably have difficulty walking for more than 5 minutes.
Yeah. Well, it'd be kind of similar to like, here in the U.S., American football is a big deal. And Europe, European football or soccer, as we call it, is a big deal. Down in Australia, rugby is a big deal, or cricket, is a big deal. So I think it would be the different planets would have different sports that they would be most interested in, I think. And motorball.
And again, the planets aren't a united collective. Mars has an endless civil war. The worm is just a quick shorthand that the movie invented to not explain that. So I wouldn't even say that Mars has a singular planetary sport. I think each of the main provinces or like each of the main areas, what was like 4 main factions. Yeah. So each of the 4 main areas of Mars would have a different most popular sports.
Yeah, probably like we do here on Earth. Different countries have different sports. Yeah.
How would a Martian-born Iron City kid, born in Mars and raised on Iron City, why would you move to Earth if you're born on Mars? Like move specifically to Iron City? How would that realistically happen?
Yeah. And if your parents did move here, they probably wouldn't go to Iron City. I mean, they might, but I mean, if it was like for some kind of super tech job, if you want to think of it, it'd probably be on Zalem. It wouldn't be on.
It wouldn't even be on Zalem. It would be on Jeru.
It would be on Jeru. Yeah, that's right. Because that's where they could go to Zalem. But yeah, I agree with you because Jeru is going to have more advanced technology.
Zalem is very isolated, so I doubt they just let any tourist go to Zalem. Like you go up to a hi, I'd like to buy a 2-hour ticket to Zalem. Okay, come here at exactly 2 p.m. and we have a guided tour.
Well, if there was a Martian-born Iron City kid, they would probably think of Alita as like a role model, maybe a hero of some sort, someone to look up to because they would know she's from Mars like they are, and I want to be like her or something like that. That's probably what they would think if that was if that was a thing, you know, if there was a Martian-born Iron City kid, you know, or a Martian-born person that's on Earth, you know, they may think the same thing. Maybe they're living on a farm or something like that, but they hear of Alita and they say, I want to be like her, you know.
Unless Iron City refers to the Iron City refers to like the type of city and not the specific city. So an Iron City-like place on Mars.
Yeah.
Also, Alita is a hero to Earth.
Yes.
To Mars, she's the moron that's fucked up a mission so badly that every other superpower got mad at Mars. And turned it into, how do I put it? Temporarily turned it into a planetary ghetto.
Well, she didn't.
That was probably not a good way of saying it, but she's not very famous on Mars, and if she is, it's for not a good reason.
Well, she didn't achieve the mission either, so among a lot of folks, she would be looked down on probably. So.
Yeah, so Alita is not famous on Mars, and if she is, it's definitely not a positive fame. Maybe, but probably not, considering it's a military thing and not a popular use thing. Unless it was something that was super marketed by Martians, like, this is our peak technology, this is so awesome, we're better than Venus. Unless it was something like that, I don't think so.
Well, you know, now the like you were saying, being kind of like a construct and not so you didn't have to explain the Civil War, but if the had control of berserker bodies, that's not getting out in the public. They're not going to let that happen, you know. I wouldn't think, anyway. What do you think, Jim? Do you think the would want berserker bodies to be sold to the public?
I have no idea about the but I can tell you about the royalty ruling ruling Mars in the comics, that they would absolutely be petty enough to reveal this to the public to piss off each other and then be angry, confused, and scared about what the public would do once it's revealed to the public, because they revealed it to the public to piss off each other. They are that level of petty.
Well, yeah, but they would do that too to intimidate them, maybe, if they, you know.
Yes.
Them. Yeah. What does the last point mean?
Yeah, that is a good point. Who created this question? What diaspora? Because diaspora would be like Martian people living not on Mars, and we don't really see much of that.
Else. Yeah, and how would the berserker legacy or technology support that or something? I'm not sure.
Berserkers are a full specific type of military body.
Yeah.
Maybe some imagery related to berserkers would be a cultural symbol, but yeah, the question is just not really holding up. And again, what Martian diaspora? How many places are Martians living?
Well, how many people on Mars that were born on Mars are now living on Earth or Venus or Jupiter? I mean, it's probably near zero, probably. So I don't think it has very much of an effect, other than the military effect. See, talking about the movie timeline, it really depends on the berserker bodies having a lot of mode. Didn't want to treated like weapons of mass destruction. Yeah, that's kind of like what we were talking about. What is a cultural touchstone? Well, it's an inflection point, you know?
I have no idea what the inflection point is. And I know what a cultural touchstone is, but that's an inflection point.
Well, I don't think berserker technology is very popular among the people on Earth that were living when Mars attacked Earth. Berserker technology was probably hated. So
if it's popular, it's probably in the same way that 9/11 jokes are popular.
Exactly. Okay. Well, anyway, that's my take on, you know, I guess the interplanetary or solar systems society or civilization in Alita's world, you know. And for one thing, I think there would be people from Mars that would help, maybe folks that are rich, you know, not not the average Martian, but I think people of means would travel, you know, to different planets. That
Definitely to Jeru, considering we have a passenger airliner going between Jeru and Mars. We know because Supernova got on it as soon as he got his new pet from Embody.
I don't know if a lot of people on Mars would choose to live on Earth, particularly after the war, or choose to go to Jupiter and live there, or to go to Venus. They'd probably stay where they are. 90% of them would. So I don't think there would be a lot of diaspora there. You know, I mean, some might. You know, it's not like what we have today where some people elect to go live in another country, but that's because, you know, maybe the cultures are different, but everybody's still humans, and they can still adapt, and, you know, it wouldn't be the challenge that it would be going from one planet to the other, I don't think. So.
Should I pull up the PowerPoint?
If you want to.
Or is everyone too sleepy to take out the pencil?
What does the chat think? You want Channel to do a little bit of a tutorial on
what's
drawing?
The topic tomorrow, by the way?
Say again, Channel?
What's the topic tomorrow?
The topic tomorrow is going to be just a celebration of the 300th, I guess, episode of Radio Chaos.
Yeah, I can do the art. Does the chat want an art stream? Yeah, art tutorial segment today. Let me open the. Oh wait, let me find the PowerPoint in the first place.
AKA
okay.
says yes, he would like it.
Found it. So we have two options for the PowerPoint. One is here, and the other one is drawing a face from the side.
Okay.
The option I actually have a PowerPoint ready for is here, so that's what you're getting. But I can make the drawing face from the side. I have already pictures for that. And oops. Pokaz slajdów I od początku. So as you can probably see here, I want you to get your pen and paper.
That's nice.
Is it still loading? Can you see that it's still loading?
No, it's we can see it.
Okay, I'm trying to on my
That's
phone.
3 different versions of Alita, isn't it? Looks like.
Yes, it's 3 different versions. I'm trying to follow the stream along on my phone, and it is still loading. So we have 3 different versions of Alita because I noticed during the last art tutorial, our first one in the series, the thing that people most complained about getting wrong is Alita's hair. So I decided let's focus on just the hair this time. And Alita's hair has 3 main versions. We have the classic version, the very round big bob. We have this version, which this guitar pick shaped hair that the non-canon ending graced us with, and that carried over to the beginning of Last Order. And later on in Last Order, her hair got flattened, and we ended up with this. So pick your favorite Alita, and I will be showing all 3 of those hairstyles, and I suggest you take out the paper and pencils or the digital program with a sketch layer. Please do a sketch. And I'm gonna explain the 3 of those hairstyles, but pick just one to replicate, depending on which your favorite era of Alita is. My favorite one is this one, obviously. Oops. But this one might be more recognizable, and this is just how she looks for, I think, the second half of Last Order, at least, if not more. We start with this basic head shape from the last lesson. Does everyone following along already have the basic head shape ready? Yeah, I still just see the white circle and a black background moving around. Guys, can you go onto YouTube and check if the stream actually works? Because I'm on YouTube and it is not streaming properly. Can one of you go open YouTube and enter the stream from YouTube instead of from StreamYard and see if people can actually see anything?
I'm looking at it now. Yeah, it looks like it's in a loop. It looks like it's just.
Yeah, that's kind of a problem. Oops, and it's crashed. Wait, unshare it. See if I can
Yeah,
share
it's
it.
it's not showing up on YouTube channel.
Yeah, so that's kind of the problem. So I'm unsharing it. I'm gonna try to share it again.
Okay.
Maybe that'll work now. Is it working now?
Let's see. There's usually about a 7-second delay. And yes.
Okay, the quality kind of dropped, but yeah, we have the original Big Bob. We have the guitar pick that the non-canon ending graced us with, and that the beginning of Last Order carried over. And then we have the flattened version that the rest of Last Order ended up with. So pick your favorite Alita. Are we ready?
Go for it.
Okay, we start with the best basic head shape from the previous lesson. I trust you remember how to do that. And if you're watching this after the stream finished, then you can rewind and check how to do that. Does everyone drawing have the basic head shape ready? Yes, then we are moving on to shaping the head. So for the basic Alita hairstyle, the classic hairstyle, we're starting with a big circle. You see the circle isn't exactly centered. It's partially to the side here. With the Alita guitar pick hairstyle, we're starting with a big rounded triangle. Whereas with the Alita's flattened hair in Last Order, we are doing this thing that's between a triangle and the circle. In step 2, so the thing in here is that you have to find the general shapes, which the general shape in the modern newest Alita is just this vague general hair shape. It's not super defined. It's what you see on this picture. I don't think I need to describe too much what's happening on the bottom row. Unless I should. On the middle row and on the top row, we have a more visible parting that's on the side on both, whereas in the bottom it's smack dab in the middle. If you pick the round Alita hairstyle, then you take a little dip, create this crease, very soft, in the side of her hair for the parting. Now from this side of her hair, we have the hairlines extending like this. So we have those two big shapes that her hair forms. It kind of looks like wings moving away from here. If you pick the guitar pick Alita hairstyle, then add this, we're rounding away this part here, opposite to where the hair parting is. We're rounding out this part. This side and this side of the triangles, there's a triangle. This side gets poofed outside. And here the hairline is a bit more complex, whereas here is just the wing shape, and here is standard V, inverted V. Here we have this tear shape, kinda, this leaf, it's not a tear shape, it's a leaf shape on one side, and this smaller inverted V on the other, more like a check mark, and they form a heart. The hair parting and the hairline kind of form a heart. Do we have that? So once we have the heart, the cute little heart, we are going, I quickly drew in the face. As for the hair, this is already where I started rounding back in the bottom part of the guitar picks. So just rounding in this much. And I explained faces the previous time, so I'm not really explaining faces, but I drew in the face here. Here I started inking in the face. Not much is happening for the hair. I'm not sure why I included this as a separate amount of slides, but it is here. And this is where the bottom layer got erased. We're back to the focusing on the hair. So we're inking in the hairline. Again, here the hairline is very soft. The parting is in the middle. We've got this, here the hairline is more bowed. Again, mostly of soft shapes, but it's more of a defined bow. And it's from the side. The part where her hair is bigger has a less curved, straighter hairline, whereas the part where the hair is smaller has a bigger curve, it's rounder. And the middle one, the guitar pick one, has a very sharp hair, whatever it's called, this swoop here, except instead of being a swoop, it's just this sharp stalk of hair that's up and then to the side. And a much softer, smaller one here, and the big one is this version. You can mirror it if you want. So this thing becomes this thing. And I added in some more detail. Okay, once we have this base of the hair, we can add in the exterior. Now I am leaving the bottom of the hair empty here because the bottom of the hair is where we're going to have the most interesting extra stuff to add. On the most right, I started adding the top hairs because I don't know if you noticed, but in every version of her hairstyle, Alita has those little things sticking up at the top of her head. She has them more or less, and depending on the volume or art style, but she pretty much always has them. A bunch of characters have something like this, either have something like this or aggressive fringes that just long singular strands. But yeah, it helps to add this in. And I also added in her markings. Here we go, speak of the aggressive single strand fringes. With the classic Alita, it's a bunch of strands. They're not very long, but there's a lot of them. With the toothpick Alita hairstyle, we have less of those strands and they're a bit more organized, but they're still, they're more cooperating with the rest of her hairstyle. It's just in her hair. And then at the bottom one, the newest version of Alita, we only have two bigger hair strands. They're less coordinated, but they're bigger and there's less of them. They are longer. They're not much bigger, but they are much longer and there's much less of them. There's only 2 or 3 now maybe, or 1 even sometimes, but they're longer. Okay, and here is finally the bottom part of the hair. So we have those little fish hook shapes. Here, first I just sketched them in to see how big her hair will be roughly. And then I actually draw them in. You can also draw some loose hairs on the side of her head. The bottom here will not be perfectly even unless she just got a haircut. Or she's wearing a really well taken care of wig. Now, when it comes to hair types, they all have pretty much the same hair type, but the general rule is that curly and wavy hair will be bouncier, whereas straight hair gets way more affected by, it's more affected by motion in the sense of direction of motion. So curly hair is going to bounce more, wavy hair is going to drag in the direction from where the motion started. And for wavy hair, it depends on the length. If wavy hair is short, it's more likely to just bounce like curly hair. If it's long, then it's weighed down by its own weight, and it's going to behave like straight hair. But Alita doesn't have long hair, and the different hairstyles are different hair textures. I should do a hair texture tutorial once I figure that out myself.
All right.
And here I actually added in the little hooks. And the coloring started. So the top of the hair here, the parting, I usually just do black, and the tips of the hair I also do black because you want the tips of the hair to be visible. The inside of the hair, it can be left less shaded because negative space as highlights or something. I don't even know how to properly explain this in English. But the little fishhook shapes at the bottom are important. They don't have to be super clean. It's the upper lines that define the hair that are more noticeable and that people would more care about. The only reason I'm paying attention to the fish hooks is because they feel more natural than just straight spikes. Even people with straight hair generally don't have perfectly straight hair. It's usually some level of wavy. And people with very, very curly hair won't even have those fish hooks. The fish hooks are for, but Alita's hair is pretty straight, so it applies here. I am curious to see what Alita the Killing Angels looks like now. So here more coloring entered the chat. And by that I mean her hair. I put those two in the wrong order. I guess. Alita's hair is a very dark brown. It's either black or brown or a dark brown or a soft brown, depending on which illustration you're looking at. If you're looking at that one very bad one, she's blonde. But if you're looking at the same one, it's either black or brown. So I am using a lighter, warmer brown as the undertone. And here you just kind of smudge it around. If you leave white gaps, that's fine. That's good. This is just the undertone. This is where the highlights go. Now, if you don't have a brown marker, then just leave the highlights empty. That's what the manga did. But if you do have an access to a brown marker, honestly, a red marker might work as well, because if in the correct lighting, then use that as the highlights. And then I just smush with a marker over top of it. If you layer multiple shades of brown, you can get this almost dark, really nice color, but I don't have the patience for that, so we're just going with straight black. I do have the patience for it sometimes, but here I'm just going for straight black because it fits more the manga's black and white aesthetic. And as you can probably see, the highlights are mostly on the biggest straight, the bent out part of the hair. So here on the top, on the big thing, here on the top of the big thing, here on both sides of the big thing, here a lot less because there's less area for the light to reflect from. Here on the sides of this flop. And a little bit on the underside, but not much, since the underside doesn't get much light because it's blocked by the rest of the hair and by her head. Okay, so that has been the Alita hair tutorial. I hope it was understandable.
Looks like you got some good comments, channel.
Yep, and if anyone wants to follow along and wants to share theirs, I would love to see it. And I'm also taking suggestions on what the next one should be. Aside from drawing face from the side, I already did the drawings for that. I just need to edit them better. They're currently on the gaming channel, gaming servers, anyone's on it.
Okay, well, what I'll do is when this thing, when we end the stream, YouTube, kind of sets it up, you can watch it afterwards. What I'll do is I'll put a timestamp on when a channel starts the tutorial. I'll put that in there. That way you can just skip right to it. All right.
I don't have a Twitter, The Killing Angel, so could you also please post it somewhere else or send a link to that Twitter and directly to the post, because I don't have Twitter, so I can't check you out there.
Well, AKA, if you're on the gaming channel, you could send it to her that way, I guess.
Yeah, I'm also on Blue Sky and Tumblr.
Well, if you're on Tumblr, send it to her that way. Well, did we miss anything? I don't think so. Yeah, thanks for that tutorial channel. That was excellent. As you can see by that center panel right there, Alita does love her Uncle Creek because he wants a sequel just like she does. And there's our queen. And, of course, she's #1 in the Creek's book in terms of being an actor. We are really fortunate that she was picked to portray Alita in the movie because she is awesome. I also want to give shout outs to Eldamont and Jesse Fisher because they brought Screwhead to life. And what I want to see is I want to see Alita and Screwhead team up to take on Joshigan. Yeah, that's right, Smendrick. Our queen and two princesses, I guess. They probably wouldn't like to be called princesses. So anyway, that's that, you know. And yeah, AKA says great tutorial. Yeah, channel.
Thank you. I should start doing tutorial segments on every stream I'm on.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, if you come on my stream, you can do another one. I don't have any trouble with that. Now, next week, we're not going to have an Alita live stream because I'm going to be in London, England. I'm going to be going to see Rosa, you know, in the play she's in, High Noon. But we will, there will be a live stream replay coming up. And it's one we did about 3 months ago, I guess, or 2 months ago, maybe. 3 months ago, where, you know, she was interviewed by Perry Nemoff, you know, of Collider. And of course, we discussed it and you know, discussed what to do with it, you know, how we could contribute to a sequel and stuff like that. Now, this will not be live, but the chat will be enabled, so you will be able to, you know, log into it. You know, it's going to premiere, and you can discuss in the chat, you know, various things, you know, that you see or you want to say watching the replay and that sort of stuff. And tomorrow on Radio Chaos, we're going to be, you know, celebrating the 300th edition, I guess, or episode of Radio Chaos. And I think, Chandler, you're going to be on there. I'll send you a link if I haven't sent one already.
On the 16th, probably not.
Oh,
maybe. I don't know. Yeah, but 16th, I probably can.
The 10th, tomorrow, yeah.
10th. Yeah, the 10th. Maybe
Okay,
it will be.
I'll send you a link. So you maybe, because I did see in the show notes that either Angelus or Maxie put in there that, you know, that they were anticipating, you know, another tutorial. So, you know, that's.
Should I do the second one or use the one from today in case someone didn't watch today's stream?
Whatever you want to do, that'd be fine. You're right there, Smendrick. I am a lucky guy. Not 300 years old, Smendrick. 300 episodes.
Oh shit! It's 3 a.m. I'm probably gonna be leaving now.
Oh boy. We do have an after party, the Stammtisch. You know, I'll stick around for a little while. Anybody wants to join? Let me put the link in the chat here. So if anybody wants to come on after the stream. Here's the link right here. Just click on that. Now, you won't come into the stream. I'll wait till the stream is over, then I'll bring you in. And this will not be streamed. This will be just us.
Sorry, guys, it's 3 a.m. I'm leaving. Bye.
Well, maybe Channel might leave because it is pretty late for her. So, yeah, I'll stick here for a while. And if anybody wants to, you know, wants to come on and chat, you know, we can talk for a few minutes, and you know, we can talk about several different things. And like I say, this will not be streamed, so nobody on the internet will see it. Just want to remind everybody that we are the Alita Army. We are Alita advocates, and we support Alita and Rosa Salazar passionately and positively. We do all kinds of cool stuff in the name of Alita, like charity campaigns and so forth. And of course, the Alita Army is here to stay. We are going to keep doing what we're doing until Disney gives us those sequels. And I say sequels because I want more than one. I want at least 2 sequels. But if I had my pick, if I had my way, we would have 8 movies, 8 more movies. We would have a live action series. We'd have more anime. We'd have merch. We'd have games, all kinds of good stuff. So that's what I want because for one thing, I want to see our queen get a whole bunch of residuals. I want to see that as well. So why is this image here? Well, that image is there because I like it. and I am running the stream, and I am certainly the only one on the stream right now. So, you know, and to paraphrase Gruishka, I am only here for our girl and our queen and the Alita army. And that only leaves me with one thing left to do, and I don't even have to count down to 3 on this one. So, folks, film those sequels, baby. We will see you next, well, we won't see you next week on the Alita live stream, although there will be a video you guys can watch. But we will see you tomorrow on Radio Chaos. Bye.
What's up, Alita Army? This is Hot Toys Alita, and I hope you enjoyed this week's Alita live stream. Please join my Uncle Creek, Angelus, and our other guests for next week's show. Remember, I do not stand by in the presence of evil, and film those sequels, baby. See you next time.
No cause is lost, if there was but one fool left to fight for it.
Yeah, Gary, that'd be nice.